start our afternoon session. So before I start, please silence. I would like to give the floor to the representative of India. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We have a long and large agenda, a complex agenda ahead of us, and we are significantly behind schedule. I would like to propose to the committee, subject naturally to their consent, that 4 nominations which are recommended for inscription, unless a state party, a member state of the member of the committee has an objection to the inscription, that we simply take them as adopted unless that is done. Secondly, Madam Chair, on the congratulations, I appreciate the fact that states parties should be congratulated. I think you should offer an opportunity to the state party concerned to take the floor. But other forms of congratulations, I would suggest that anybody who does not want to congratulate should be allowed to take the floor. Otherwise, it can be done outside the room. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Yes, thank you. And I would ask you, yes, let's be more concise with the time. So now we move on to the draft decision 36.8b.24, Gonbad-e-Qaboos, Iran, Islamic Republic of Iran. So, ICOMOS, floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Could we have the next slide, please? Here you can see a location map for the property which is in the very northeast of Iran. Next slide, please. The Tomb Tower is visible from a great distance in the surrounding lowlands. Gonbad-e-Qaboos is the tallest and oldest of what was to become a predominant monumental tomb form for the Iranian-Turkish region. Built in 1006 AD, near to the ancient Zigrid capital, Jurjan, to commemorate the reign of the ruler, Qaboos ibn Wushmagir, the tower rises to 53 meters. Designed in accordance with intricate geometry and mathematical principles and constructed of unglazed fired brick, the tower rises to a conical roof. Next slide, please. In terms of categories, this is a monument. Next slide, please. The tower itself and a small area of surrounding land is the nominated area, and it is surrounded by a buffer zone which is part of the surrounding town. Next slide, please. The Tomb Tower is around 3 kilometers southwest of the ruins of the ancient city of Jurjan on the Jurjan River in the northeast of Iran. It's based on a plan deriving from a star decagon shape, and the design incorporates 10 triangular flanges which terminate between the corbelled cornice of the dome. The walls are 3 meters thick and gradually tapered as the tower rises upwards. Next slide, please. Built by the order of Qaboos ibn Wushmagir, the most vigorous and enlightened of the rulers of the Zihrids, it marked his court as a centre for the arts. Qaboos himself was a scholar and patron of scholars, a poet and patron of poets, and also an astrologer and linguist. Nothing else survives in his town, which was destroyed by the Mughals in the 14th century. And the tower is now surrounded by a modern town laid out in 1926. Next slide, please. Here is a detail of the brick cone which crowns the tower, which is in itself created of specially made angled facing bricks which tie together and into the core to achieve an almost completely smooth finish. Next slide, please. The tower is raised up on a 10-meter high mound, which could be a prehistoric date. Next slide, please. The face of the tower is plain, except for two inscriptions, one around the top of the tower, just below the cornice, and one a short distance from the base. These, in Kufic calligraphy, give the date of its construction. Next slide, please. These slides illustrate the extraordinary precision of the tomb structure, perhaps reflecting a work of the mathematicians and cosmologists that were part of the Ziyarid court, and they also illustrate how well it has survived its 1,000 years. Next slide, please. The tower is entered through a narrow arched entry. The walls of the interior were originally plastered, and in the upper stages this still survives. In the east side of the conical roof there's a small arched opening, and this allows the entry of light at the time of the rising sun. No tomb was found during excavations at the base of the structure by Russian investigators in 1899 or subsequently in 1936. And legend has it that the body of Qaboos in a glass coffin was suspended within the cone, the morning sun striking his body through the eastern opening. Next slide, please. As well as surviving the Mongols' invasion, the tower also survived an earthquake in the 15th century. It was damaged in World War I slightly, and in 1928 restoration works were carried out. The tower is now in a good structural condition. Next slide, please. In terms of comparative analysis, the tomb tower is the earliest and most expressive of a series of some 50 monumental tomb towers still standing, all of which are considerably lower in height than this one. Together they cover a period of 700 years and vary enormously in size, form and ornamentation, and are found in every part of Iran. The comparative analysis acknowledges that towers in the shape of stars do exist elsewhere, notably in China, but that the analysis needs to be confined to tomb towers, which are a specific cultural phenomena in this area of the world. And if you compare this one with the other tomb towers, this one is clearly the most outstanding. Next slide, please. The area around the base of the tower is now widely used for cultural events, and the tower itself is also increasingly popular with tourists. Next slide, please. Generally, the conservation of the tower is adequate. However, around the base, there are problems with rising damp, which may or may not be associated with various landscape interventions on the mound on which it stands. ICOMOS considers the need for a detailed survey of conditions to try and avoid these problems deteriorating in the future. Next slide, please. Around the tower, there is a new city within which taller constructions are tending to be built, and we consider that special care is needed to protect the silhouette of the tomb tower. Next slide, please. And this slide shows you the interventions on the surrounding mound, which appear to have caused some problems with the damp within the buildings. Next slide, please. In summary, we consider that all the conditions are met, and that this property satisfies criteria 1, 2, 3, and 4. It's a masterpiece of brick architecture, an outstanding architectural tomb tower that was the precursor for many others, and an outstanding reflection of the intellectual and artistic achievements of the Ziyarid dynasty. Conservation is the one area that needs strengthening through the production of a conservation plan and also a risk preparedness strategy. Next slide, please. In conclusion, ICOMOS recommends that this property be inscribed on the basis of 1, 2, 3, and 4. Next slide, please. And we have a number of recommendations relating to management, conservation, and risk preparedness. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Dear colleagues, this site is proposed to be inscribed in the list. Is it necessary to discuss something? Do you have any objection for the inscription? No. So can we consider the draft decision 36-8B.24, Gonbad, a Qaboos Islamic Republic of Iran, adopted. Congratulations, State Party, and you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for granting the floor to the Iranian delegation once again to direct the warmest of gratitude toward the distinguished committee members for their outstanding efforts to keep to the spirit of the World Heritage Convention. Madam Chair, distinguished members of the World Heritage Committee, ladies and gentlemen, June 30, 2012 is a day of enthusiasm and pride for all Iranians throughout the world. With 2 inscriptions on the World Heritage List, we feel honored of our share to promote and safeguard the heritage of humanity this year. Your decision this afternoon increased the number of our World Heritage sites to 15 and defined us with great commitment toward their safeguarding. Indeed, Gumbad Qaboos clearly shows the ingenuity of mankind as a prototype of the development of the construction of brick tomb towers, a significant reference in the history of Islamic architecture. Gumbad Qaboos constitutes a regional starting point in a significant cultural tradition to construct tower tombs in memory of prominent literary figures. The tradition has survived to the present time. With today's decision of the World Heritage Committee, we are additionally assured that the integrity and authenticity of this very important monument will further be protected and preserved. Madam Chair, ladies and gentlemen, Iran joined the 1972 Convention right at the outset of its foundation, and since then has been very active not only in capacity building in the country, but also in the implementation of the Convention. With this latest inscription, we are looking forward to working more closely with the World Heritage Committee and the World Heritage Center for the years to come. Thanks are also due to all the distinguished members of the World Heritage Committee for inscribing Gumbad Qaboos on the World Heritage List. Our gratitude will also go to ICOMOS and the World Heritage Center for their valuable cooperation in this regard. Madam Chair, we will leave the beautiful city of St. Petersburg with great memories of the present session and the warm hospitality directed to us by the Russian people. The Governor General of Golestan Province and Isfahan Province, who are attending this session, would like to be able to welcome you all in Iran to visit the inscribed sites. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and once more, congratulations. Dear colleagues, before we move to the other side, I would like to make some statement about some sad news we just received of wanton damage being inflicted to the mausoleum of Sidi Mahmoud in Timbuktu in the north of Mali. This is part of the World Heritage Site of Timbuktu, which we inscribed on UNESCO World Heritage in Danger List earlier during our session here. This is tragic news for all of us, even more so for the inhabitants of Timbuktu, who have cherished and preserved this monument over more than 7 centuries. I call on all members of the committee who represent the international community to join me in the expressing sadness and concern for the survival of this important World Heritage property. I appeal to all those engaged in the conflict in Timbuktu to exercise their responsibility for the sake of future generations, spare the legacy of their past. Thank you very much. So now we move on to the other site. It's our Mr. Bandarin wants to take some floor.
Sorry,
Thank you.
Chairperson, in relationship to this tragic event, we have to inform you also that the DG, who is, of course, has been informed, is about to issue a statement on the thing, and we will, of course, provide to you further information as we get, because the thing is just happened this morning, and we don't have a precise information on the facts that have brought to the destruction of World Heritage, parts of World Heritage sites of Timbuktu. We will keep you informed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we move on to the other site. It's Asia-Pacific region. Archaeological heritage of the Lenggong Valley, Malaysia. ICOMOS, floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Could we have the next slide, please? This map shows the location within Malaysia. Next slide, please. The nominated property is 4 sites in 2 clusters, and they're located on the Perak River, separated by Lenggong town. Next slide, please. The lush Lenggong Valley on the Malay Peninsula contains evidence in the open air and in cave sites along the river, spanning all the periods of hominin history outside Africa, possibly from 1.8 million to 1,700 years ago. Undisturbed in situ Paleolithic stone tool workshops are located on the shores of a paleo lake and ancient river gravel beds, and dated in a long chronological sequence. Next slide, please. In terms of categories, this is nominated as a serial nomination of 4 sites, but is also nominated as a cultural landscape. Next slide, please. Over a period of 2 million years, the valley provided gravel suitable for prehistoric stone toolmaking and limestone caves for shelter. During the period of much lower sea levels, some 40,000 years ago, the valley was part of a tropical savanna. Next slide, please. Cluster 1 is located north of a bend in the Perak River and consists of 1 overall site, which includes the open-air stool workshop sites on the ancient lakeshore and gravel river terraces. Next slide, please. This is Koto Tampan site, which was excavated in the 1980s and 90s, and when it was revealed that it was a stone tool manufacturing site dating back to some 74,000 years before the present. Now on a hill slope, it was originally on the shore of an ancient lake during the Pleistocene period, and its sudden abandonment was apparently due to a catastrophic volcanic eruption which covered the area with volcanic ash and which has helped to date it. Next slide, please. The assemblage of artifacts found at this site has revealed and made possible the identification and classification of multiple tool types with specialized functions, indicating a lithic technology in Southeast Asia as sophisticated as anywhere else. As such, this site is an important global reference for Paleolithic stone toolmaking. Next slide, please. At a second site, Bukit Buna, there a meteorite impact some 1.8 million years ago blocked the river and diverted its course. And there's now a crater in the middle of what is currently a palm oil estate. There, these rocks that you see on the screen were found that are being created by the pressures and temperatures from the meteorite impact. And they're said to contain embedded stone hand axes, which have been dated chronometrically to 1.8 million years before the present. If confirmed, these hand axes are the oldest or amongst the oldest so far discovered outside Africa. Next slide, please. A stone axe workshop with assemblages has also been excavated here, which and this dates to around 40,000 years before the present. Next slide. ICOMOS notes that this cluster of 2 sites has particular importance in the debate about the expansion of anatomically modern humans out of Africa. No human fossils have been found at this site, so there's a lively debate about whether the tools were made by pre-modern humans. There is no doubt the site will remain of international importance in such debates. Next slide. As you can see from this image, this site is open to the public and explained to them. Next slide, please. The second cluster of sites is located further up the river and comprises 3 separate sites, 2 cave sites and an open-air workshop. Next slide, please. This one, Bukit Jawa, or Jawa, is another in-situ stone tool workshop site, which was located on the shores of an island in an ancient lake, dating from 200,000 to 100,000 before the present. The techniques of tool making using anvils and hammerstones were similar to that developed at the much later Kota Tampan site. Next slide, please. This next site, Bukit Kepala Gajah, is on a karst outcrop and where there are around 20 caves, of which 4 have been excavated and revealed prehistoric burials dating to the Holocene period. Next slide, please. One of the most important finds was Perak Man, found in one of the caves, which is Southeast Asia's oldest, most complete human skeleton, radiocarbon dated to 10,000 before the present. And the burial was accompanied by many other artifacts. Next slide, please. And finally, there are remains from other caves which bring the record much nearer to the present, to around 8,000 years ago. Next slide, please. In this limestone massif, a total of 13 skeletons have been uncovered between 2,000 and 4,000 years ago. Next slide, please. There's also been the finding of a bronze axe and its mold. This is unique in Southeast Asia and brings the finds well into the Bronze Age. Together, these 4 sites in 2 clusters represent a sequence of significant stages in human history that is unrivaled in the region. Next slide, please. The finds are well looked after. There are more concerns with the actual sites, the open-air workshops, caves, and artifacts within the valley and how these are protected. ICOMOS considers that the visual integrity of the setting of the property overall is problematic. While the setting of the cave sites is satisfactory, the open-air stone tool workshop sites, the landscape has been greatly modified. One is in an oiled palm plantation, another is surrounded by a rubber plantation, and the third is in a rehabilitated clearing within the rubber plantation. While it's clearly not possible to recover the prehistoric setting of these sites, some linkages do need to be made with it in terms of connections to the relict landscape features which give the sites such meaning. Next slide, please. ICOMOS considers that the property can justify criterion 3 and 4, that integrity and authenticity are justified, but great care will need to be taken to protect the surroundings of some sites. The buffer zone does not currently adequately protect the landscape setting and needs extending. There has been some vandalism at the cave sites. There are distinct threats from more intensive agriculture and housing developments that could lead to demands for quarrying. In the past, highway development has impacted on one of the sites. ICOMOS is concerned that the present protection, conservation and management of the sites isn't adequate to address these threats. The protection needs enhancing through the completion of a special area plan, which has only recently been commenced, to prevent unauthorized excavations, and the whole boundary of this plan needs to be included in the National Heritage Register. In terms of conservation, this needs to be greatly improved if the property is to survive the transition from being an archaeological study area to becoming a cultural tourism site, as is being planned. Areas of known archaeological significance and potential archaeological significance need to be identified. The draft management plan needs to be completed, approved and implemented based on a complete inventory of the property, and conservation priorities need to be identified and monitoring indicators developed. There is also a need for a tourism and interpretation plan. This may sound like a very long list of things that ICOMOS considers should be done, but we consider that our responsibility is to suggest how the site can be made robust enough to stand up to the pressures which it appears will impact on it. Next slide, please. ICOMOS therefore recommends that the examination of this property be deferred in order to allow the state party to identify those issues that I've outlined, and details of those recommendations are in your papers. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Dear colleagues, floor is open, excuse me. There you have a floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We thank ICOMOS for the comprehensive presentation. We would like to ask ICOMOS regarding the decision for deferral, because what we understand usually when the site satisfies the condition of OUV, then it should be a referral. So I wanted a clarification on the evaluation process. Secondly, the points mentioned by ICOMOS were related to management and boundaries, and usually additional information required is later asked regarding these points. So I would like to ask whether such an additional information was asked by the state party, asked from the state party, and whether it was given. And if not, then if the state party can respond to those points. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Japan, floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair. After reading the dossier on the Legon Valley, I understand that all criteria about OUV are completely satisfied. So remaining issues are about conservation and management. The draft decision mentioned that several conditions are not yet met. Therefore, defer is given to this case. In this context, I'd like to ask both the state party and ICOMOS for some clarification. First, to the state party. I hear almost all conditions required except a detailed management plan are already completed. So I'd like to ask for clarification in this regard. Secondly, to ICOMOS, I understand deferred is given when substantial revision is needed, especially because of lack of justification for OUV. In this case, it has a OUV, no problem, while it has its authenticity and integrity also. As compared with other previous cases, deferral is too harsh evaluation in this case. I'd like to ask for clarification in this regard. Finally, if all the conditions except a detailed management plan are satisfied, we would like to support this heritage to be inscribed on condition that a detailed management plan be prepared by 2014. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. It seems to me that it was posed key questions, and I would like, before I give the floor to other speakers, I would ask to answer these questions to ICOMOS first and then to State Party. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will try and answer the various questions that have been raised by the delegates from India and Japan. One of the questions is, did we write to the state party to ask for any additional information? And the answer is yes, we did. We wrote on 9th of September asking for clarification on a number of things: the property boundaries, the ownership protection, current conservation and management. We wrote about all those things, and we indeed received a response, and we have incorporated the response into our evaluation. The second question was this issue as to whether, as outstanding universal value has been identified, why is this a deferral? Now, can I say that, first of all, we have said that the criteria and authenticity and integrity have been satisfied, but protection and management is actually part of outstanding universal value. In order to have a complete statement of outstanding universal value, we need to be able to say that protection and management requirements are satisfactory. Now, in this instance, we do not feel they're satisfactory, and we do feel that quite substantial changes and arrangements need to be made to ensure that the property will withstand the various threats and pressures that are likely to come upon it. We also feel that we would need to have a mission to the site to make sure that all the requirements were in place. And it's for this reason that we are making this recommendation, because we consider it the most helpful recommendation, because ICOMOS would be ready and willing to support the state party to meet these various conditions. We make these sort of recommendations against the background of the difficulties that properties face if they are inscribed before all these processes and measures are in place. And some examples were put before the committee when we were discussing the state of conservation reports. So it is, in our view, a helpful way to suggest that much more attention needs to be given to these protection and management and boundary issues. And we consider that these will take a little bit of time to put in place. I hope this clarifies things.
Thank you very much. State party, please, floor is yours. Malaysia.
Thank you, Madam Chair, distinguished and respectful members of the committee. Thank you for giving Malaysia this opportunity. I would also like to thank ICOMOS and WAC for the report. Allow me to clarify the management and protection of the sites, which has been in practice since 1990, when the valley became known as a significant archaeological site. Together with the nomination dossier, Malaysia sent a draft management plan which has been approved and implemented by the state party from 1st November 2011. The ICOMOS draft recommendations have been added and approved into this management plan that is currently in use. As mentioned in the draft management plan and the nomination dossier submitted, the protection measures have been put in place through the existing legal instruments: Town and Country Planning Act, the Local Government Act, Street Drainage and Building Act, and National Land Code. Since 1990, with the discovery of the Perak Mine, these legal instruments have been used to protect the sites from the development, including guano digging in the cave. That is why these sites have been intact for the last 23 years. Madam Chair, with the establishment of the National Heritage Act in 2005, there is a further strengthening of protection to prohibit all activities that would affect the OUV. 5 sites were gazetted in 2007, while 2 more will be completed in 3 months' time. Currently, while these protective measures are in place to protect the OUV, the detailed management plan, which includes the special area plan and the conservation management plan, are being completed. This final management plan will incorporate the management plan currently in use and contained in ICOMOS recommendation. Madam Chair, let me now briefly clarify that the ICOMOS recommendation were based on the evaluation mission in September 2011 and the additional data submitted in October. Malaysia took action on the suggestion made during the mission, which happened to be similar to the recommendations in this draft decision. Hence, ICOMOS did not have the benefit of an update proactive action taken by the state party between October and now. In brief, recommendations which we have fulfilled are as follow. As regard to extended buffer zone, we have extended in the 3 areas and encompasses the paleo environmental features. Second, gazetting of 2 sites ready in October, and the special area plan is scheduled for the end of 2013. Thirdly, archaeological zoning, conservation priority action, tourism and interpretation management plan have all been incorporated into the currently in use management plan that was approved. Inventory of all nominated sites has completed. Finally, ground markings of the property have been done early this year. Considering that our nomination has fulfilled the requirement of OUV and a management plan is currently implemented and the detailed one in progress, the property is under protection. We sincerely seek committee's serious consideration on this very important archaeological site. Thank you very much. One more response with regard to the ICOMOS. I rest assured that there is no danger for cultural tourism because of the presence of researchers at the valley constantly doing their work. And also, we have the National Heritage Department office located in the valley to ensure protection of the valley. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Dear colleagues, we heard a very precise answer from the member states and from ICOMOS. And I would like that when you take the floor, please express your relation to the draft decision, please. Oh, excuse me. Cambodia has a floor.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. I would be brief. I would not refer to all the positive presentation by ICOMOS and the State Party, but at the outset, we'd like to commend the efforts and attachment made by the State Party with regard to the conservation and preservation of the sites and the excellent work done by ICOMOS. The only shortages that we see in the report is about the incomplete management plan. And after we hear the clarification and update from the State Party of Malaysia, we seem to believe that the State Party has taken all the necessary measures in order to preserve the site. And we have strong belief that it is within the capacity and ability of the State Party to do so. Cambodia is also like to align itself with the position, a proposal made by Japan, that instead of defer this site, the committee should inscribe this property with the condition that the committee requests the State Party to provide the report at a specified date in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Algeria.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Je voudrais tout d'abord féliciter et remercier les experts de l'ICOMOS pour la qualité de leur rapport empreint de professionnalisme et de sérieux. Sur cette question particulière du site de la Malaisie, nous souscrivons en fait aux appréciations de l'ICOMOS, mais nous pensons tout de même qu'il y a une sorte de malentendu, en fait, un décalage dans la relation entre l'ICOMOS et l'État partie sur le partage des informations, puisque le document qui est entre nos mains et qui nous a été remis par l'État partie comporte toutes les réponses aux questions de l'ICOMOS, l'extension de la zone tampon, la législation, le plan de gestion, etc. Et à la lumière de ce qui vient d'être dit par l'État partie, nous pensons que de notre point de vue, le bien devrait être donc inscrit sur la liste du patrimoine mondial. Merci.
Thank you very much. Senegal, floor is yours.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. La question que nous voulions poser a été prise en charge tout à l'heure par la réponse de l'État partie. C'était sur la protection, parce que selon le rapport de l'ICOMOS, il y avait des problèmes par rapport à une pression agricole sur le site et qu'il y avait des problèmes par rapport à l'extension de la zone tampon. Et quand j'ai écouté le représentant de l'État partie, je pense que toutes ces questions ont été prises en charge. Et donc, de ce point de vue, je voudrais me souscrire à l'avis de l'Algérie. Voilà, merci.
Thank you very much. Russian Federation.
Спасибо, уважаемая госпожа председатель. По вашей просьбе перехожу сразу к результативной части. Мы, пропуская аргументацию, мы поддерживаем предложение Японии, Камбоджи, Алжира и Сенегала.
Thank you. Thailand, floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In its report, ICOMOS recognized that the archaeological property of Lenggong Valley, proposed for inscription by Malaysia, have met all criteria and justifications of the outstanding universal value. However, ICOMOS still recommended that the nomination be deferred and resubmitted in 1 year to allow time for Malaysia to produce a complete special area plan and a complete conservation management plan. Madam Chairman, if I may recall, paragraph 115 of the operational guideline allows the state parties to submit their management plan after inscription. Apparently, Malaysia has already submitted a draft conservation management plan and put into place several protection measures as the state party has just clarified. And I'm sure that Malaysia has every intention to submit a complete management plan after inscription. And may I call you to your attention that there are plenty of cases whereby the management plan does not form an integral part of the dossier and is submitted only after the inscription. So, Madam Chairman, it is very clear to my delegation that the property in question meets all the OUV requirements and merits to be inscribed without delay. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Dear colleagues, to save the time, may I ask you who opposes the proposal of Japan to inscribe now with the recommendations to improve or to give additional, documents? Who opposes? Switzerland, you have the floor, please.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Le rapport de l'ICOMOS constate que des conditions importantes concernant la gestion et la protection du bien n'étaient pas remplies lors de l'évaluation de ce site. Entre-temps, nous avons reçu les informations très précieuses de l'État partie sur les efforts qui ont été entrepris depuis. Nous avons aussi reçu de l'État partie une documentation importante sur ces points. Toutefois, il n'était pas possible d'évaluer tous ces engagements et ces actions et ces établissements de documents. J'aimerais aussi rappeler qu'il ne s'agit pas seulement de décrire un plan de gestion, l'important c'est la mise en œuvre de ce plan de gestion dans le terrain. Ici, il s'agit d'un site particulièrement vulnérable et dans un contexte plutôt complexe. Donc, à notre avis, il serait judicieux et important aussi que l'ICOMOS ait la possibilité de mener un dialogue avec l'État partie sur le terrain si ces conditions de gestion et de protection sont remplies maintenant et que sont mises en œuvre, mises en place sur le site. Et c'est pour cela que nous trouvons judicieux de différer la candidature afin de permettre une mission sur le site. Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you very much. As I understand, in your statement, I heard the questions to the state party. If it's possible, state party, please answer the question. Did your management plan started to be executed? Thank you.
The legal protections have been there from 1990 through the various legal measures, the various acts that we mentioned. That is why the site has been managed to be protected for the last 23 years. The draft management plan has been approved and it is being implemented now, together with the recommendations made by ICOMOS that has been incorporated in that draft management plan.
Thank you very much, Colombia.
Gracias, señora presidenta. Levantamos nuestro nombre en el momento en que habló ICOMOS porque simplemente queríamos hacer una una precisión. Tengo entendido que la representante de ICOMOS nos ha dicho que para tener el BUE se necesita también tener el plan de manejo y de protección. En eso voy a estar en desacuerdo con ella. Para el BUE se necesita la autenticidad, la integridad y los criterios. El plan de manejo y de protección son cosas que se pueden hacer ya sea con un referral o después hablando con el Estado en un caso de inscripción, pero no se necesita para el BUE. Por eso es nuestra sorpresa, por eso es que todos estamos sorprendidos que se haya ido a un defer. Gracias.
Thank you, Germany.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First, a question of principle. I think, as I know my Malaysian colleagues, they are interested to hear the opinions of the experts in the room. So our discussion has a special value, even if we all agree on something or we don't. I think we have to have this discussion. We only meet once per year, and we have a lot of experts that would be very expensive to hire, and here you can get their views right away. So on this, I think we should have a discussion. The Malaysian issue is very difficult. Usually, I think if criteria are met, and we have a clear statement that criteria are met, I'm definitely for inscription, because what we can save for mankind, we even lose things that are inscribed to wars, as we see in our conflicts, as in Timbuktu, that we have to save for mankind as soon as possible. This site will be more protected, in my point of view, if it is inscribed this year, as then if it is not inscribed. I found the deferral too harsh. However, I have heard the ICOMOS experts who said they are seriously concerned that there will not be any conservation for this site. It may not survive. So I have two questions, please. One to ICOMOS, after they have heard what the government of Malaysia has done, can they agree that jointly with them they can work out after inscription the proper conservation measures in a very short and quick time, or can't they? And secondly, again, the commitment to the Malaysian government, will they be able to very quickly put in place that these plants that are, the plantations that are there are rebuilt and that is not affected by highway building? So two questions, please.
Please, ICOMOS, answer the question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. May I first of all answer the question that was put by the Honourable Delegate from Colombia on the question of OUV, because this is rather a crucial issue, and I would like to come back to this, because when the idea of statements of outstanding universal value were introduced into the operational guidelines, they did include satisfying the criteria, authenticity, integrity, and management and protection. So all of these things together make up the statement of outstanding universal value. Now, there was a debate, there still may be a debate as to whether that's logical, if you like, but that is the arrangement that we have at the moment. And in order to determine whether a property satisfies all the conditions, as you see from our charts on the screen, we consider all those elements, including protection and management, because the idea being that if we identify an outstanding property that satisfies the criteria with authenticity and integrity, we must identify adequate protection and management to allow that outstanding universal value to be sustained. So that is how the system works currently. In the second point that was made by the Honourable Delegate from Germany is the issue of evaluating the extraordinary amount of work that the State Party has undertaken since our mission in the autumn. We, of course, have not been able to evaluate the material that has been produced in terms of draft management plans and other measures and so on. But the question you were asking is whether we could undertake a proper evaluation of these measures after inscription. That's not something that's ever happened before, and I imagine it would have to be done through an advisory mission. Sorry, have I misunderstood?
You have misunderstood. I haven't asked you for an evaluation. I have asked you for whether you can set up the management plan with them jointly. That's what is still missing. Thank you.
Apologies. So I think what you are suggesting is that we could work with the state party to consider whether what they've provided and undertaken is adequate in our view to protect the site, and if not, further recommendations could be made. Of course this could happen. It would have to be through an advisory mission. It cannot be undertaken through an official reactive monitoring mission or evaluation mission or whatever. It would have to be the state party inviting ICOMOS to give further advice post-inscription.
Thank you very much. Malaysia, please answer the question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Regarding the questions on the, is there any more highway around that area? As mentioned by my colleague and by Ambassador just now, that this site is well protected by our existing legal provision, Town and Country Planning Act, where any development within this area or surrounding this area have to abide to the Town and Country Planning Act. And since this area is a protected area, so definitely there will be no more highways coming in, because that one that you've seen is the existing one which was done many years ago. So that is the commitment that Malaysia can give to the site. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Algeria, floor is yours.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Moi, j'ai un petit souci, Madame la Présidente, à ce stade de nos discussions. Je ne sais pas comment on peut mettre en œuvre un plan de gestion à un site qui n'est pas encore inscrit. Merci.
Thank you very much. South Africa.
Thank you, Madam Chair. South African delegation would like to align itself with the comments made by Her Excellency from Germany. In order to make informed decisions, we need to look and discuss these things so that we are not seen to be opposing or just supporting for the sake of supporting. If you look at the issues as articulated by ICOMOS that are affecting the sites, are issues of sustainable development that the committee subscribed to. These issues are issues of agriculture, tourism pressure, no environmental pressure per se, that's what the report says, low risk flooding. There's a risk, Madam Chair, for not inscribing, because these things won't be controlled. Therefore, looking at these issues of sustainable development, which could be mitigated by inscribing the site, will be saving the site, because we are running a risk of deferring this site. Therefore, Madam Chair, we would like to see the site inscribed in order to come with clear mitigation measures, even the plan we are referring to. Thank you very much.
Dear colleagues, it seems to me that we come back to the same and we go the other circle of, so I understand that majority of the countries who express their opinion supporting the opinion to inscribe, except it was the opinion of Switzerland. Maybe the answer of ICOMOS and the state party satisfied them and they could agree with the majority of the committee to inscribe this site. Please, floor is yours.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Vu le souhait de la grande majorité de ce comité, je me sens bien obligé d'être d'accord avec cette décision. Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you very much. So now I propose to go to the decision. So please put on the screen the amendment to the draft decision. And I now give the floor to Rapporteur.
Yes, Madam Chairperson, we have received amendments from the delegation of India so that following the discussion, the archaeological heritage of the Lengong Valley of Malaysia could be inscribed in the World Heritage List. You have been distributed this morning these proposed amendments, so maybe, Madam Chairperson, we can go paragraph by paragraph. By saying that, I can tell you that paragraph 1 has no amendment.
Sir, if no objection, paragraph 1 is adopted.
Okay, paragraph 2. It reads, inscribe the nomination of the archaeological heritage of the Lenggong Valley, Malaysia, on the World Heritage List on the basis of criteria 3 and 4.
Are any objection? No, so adopted.
Paragraph 3.
Ethiopia.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It is just for language consistency. There is some French term there, based of criteria 384, it says. It's just going there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So go on.
Yes, Madam Chairperson. On paragraph 3, I have to inform the committee that we have included the proposed statement of outstanding universal value. Nevertheless, there are some part of this statement that still need further consultation between the advisory body and the state party. So following previous decision of the committee when we have similar situations, I propose to you to say in paragraph 3, adopt the following provisional statement of outstanding universal value, and then you have the rest of this text.
Thank you very much. Are anybody object to this text? I see none, so adopted. Go on.
Yes, new paragraph 4 reads as follows. Further recommends that the state party, A, ensures that the extended buffer zones to additionally protect the setting of the property included paleoenvironmental features, ensuring that the boundaries of the buffer zones protect the entire perimeter of each site. B, ensures that the sites of Bukit Bunu and Bukit Waarimu, currently protected under an interim protection order, are protected under the National Heritage Act by December 2012 through the Special Area Plan for including its entire boundary on the National Register. C, integrates the archaeological zoning plan that identifies areas of known archaeological significance and the areas of potential archaeological significance within, I think there is a mistake in here, Madam Chair. It's a repetition. Please delete the second sentence, areas of potential archaeological significance is repeated. So I repeat, integrates archaeological zoning plan that identifies areas of known archaeological significance within the property and buffer zones with the property management plan. And D, continues to implement the approved draft management plan until the adoption of the detailed management plan.
Thank you very much. Switzerland, floor is yours.
Merci Madame la Présidente. J'ai un problème avec le petit b. Comment est-ce que le comité du patrimoine mondial a le droit, la possibilité de demander à ce que l'État partie garantisse que les sites blablabla, n'est-ce pas, soient protégés par la loi sur le patrimoine national de décembre 2012. Nous sommes en juin 2012. La loi de décembre 2012 n'est pas encore adoptée par le Parlement de ce pays. Je ne vois pas, sincèrement, comment est-ce qu'on peut demander cela. C'est inacceptable, Madame la Présidente. Je ne veux pas m'ingérer dans les affaires internes de la Malaisie. Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you very much. Can you precise, maybe it's mistake, India, you take the floor.
What I understand is that there is an interim protection order, so the sites are protected by the state party currently, and they are going to change it under another protection order. we can ask the state party to...
State party, please clarify this point.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It should read, are protected under the Heritage Act, not by December 2012, yeah? Until the special area plan is completed. Completed, full stop. Yeah, thank you.
I would say are also maybe protected under the National Heritage Act, because currently protected under interim director order, are protected under the national...
No, they should cut out are protected.
Switzerland, please, give us the formulation.
Juste une phrase. Cette discussion, Madame la Présidente, montre justement les doutes qui existent sur la protection de ce site. Merci, Madame la Présidente.
So please, Rapporteur, please give us the formulation.
Paragraph 4b ensures that the sites of Bukit Bunu and Bukit Wa Harimau, currently protected under an interim protection order and under the National Heritage Act. No, I think we have to rephrase it, Madam Chair.
Please, India, we go further, but try to draft its proper...
I think it should be currently protected under an interim protection order, will be protected under the National Heritage Act. It's, I believe there is, the issue here is really of legislation, federal and local level, which varies from countries to countries. And that is one point I also find in the evaluations when we are, communicating with ICOMOS, that the understanding of state level legislation or national legislation is always an issue. Probably that's why, probably we need to address it at a larger level later.
Thank you very much, but it seems to me that here is problem of language. Only Japan, please.
Yes, because this is a complicated thing in the internal law situations. We'd like to need the clarification from the state parties.
State party, or maybe it's Switzerland, as usual, he formulated very well. Rudolf.
Thank
help
you,
us.
Madam Chair.
Yes, please, maybe you.
Ensures that the sites of Bukit Bunu and Bukit Gua Harimau, currently protected under the interim protection order of the National Heritage Act, will remain until the special area plan is completed.
México.
Gracias, señora presidenta. Una redacción alternativa que tal vez podría solucionar este párrafo que a nuestro modo de ver no se entiende, independientemente cuál es su contenido. siguiendo el comentario de la delegación suiza, tampoco creemos que el comité pueda asegurar que el Estado parte, o esta formulación exigirle al Estado parte que cumpla, que meta este sitio bajo su legislación nacional y no meternos en estos problemas de distinguir entre ley federal, ley estatal. Tal vez necesitamos hacerlo más general y pedir al Estado parte lo siguiente: ensures that the sites of Bukit Bunu and Bukit Gua Harimau, currently protected under an interim act, will remain protected. Gracias, señora Presidenta.
Dear colleagues, I don't know, is here the, English-speaking, native English-speaking people? It seems to me here it's problem with the language mostly than with understanding of the sense, maybe. Rapporteur, please.
I'm going to try a draft, Madam Chairperson, but I just would like to the confirmation of the State Party that this is accurately. Okay? Ensures that the sites of Bukit Bunu and Bukit Gua Harimau remain protected under the interim protection order of the National Heritage Act until the special area plan is completed. Does that work? I'm going to repeat it so the people in the computers can follow me. Ensures that the sites of Bukit Bunu and Bukit Gua Harimau remain protected under the interim protection order of the National Heritage Act until the special area plan is completed.
So, South Africa.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Perhaps we are lucky. I know most people here, we are using English, not speaking it. Chair, I'm not sure why are we doing some redundancy here. Our understanding is that the protection order is a provision within the Act. If we want to go that far, referring to national legislation, South Africa will propose the removal of the protection order from the text so that we are left with legislation. And then we can decide if we want to refer to national legislation when we make decisions. Because protection order is, in terms of the Act, is a provision within the Act. Why using it in this text? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Do you have any objection? I see none. So I propose to adopt the whole paragraph, which is 4 A, B, C, D. I see no objection, so adopted. Now we move on to the next paragraph, which is proposed to delete. Are any objections? Yes, India, please.
That's a typographical error, Madam Chair. It's 2013. Oh, I'm sorry, 4.
We are talking about paragraph.
No, we speak about the paragraph, the next paragraph. 3, 4, it's paragraph 5 for deletion. I see no objection, so adopted. And then paragraph 6.
It's 2014.
Please, Rapporteur, take the floor.
Yes, on paragraph 6, it says, recommends that the State Party give consideration to completing the special area plan and a detailed conservation management plan before February 2014, as proposed by India.
Are any objections to this point? I see none. So, and now we move to adopt the whole decision, 36.8b.25, archaeological heritage of the Langok Valley, Malaysia. So, I see no objection. The decision is adopted. Congratulations, State Party. Malaysia, you have the floor.
Dobre den, Madam Chair. The delegation from Malaysia is delighted and greatly relieved. On behalf of the Government of Malaysia and our Minister of Information, Communications and Culture, our very warm thanks to you, Madam Chair, for your untiring stewardship of this meeting held in such grand and elegant surroundings. To our distinguished colleagues, the World Heritage Committee, who spoke in support of our inscription, we thank you for your appreciation of this extraordinary prehistoric archaeological site. To ICOMOS and World Heritage Center, we thank you for your assistance. We realize that inscription is an important beginning, and we are committed to following through with a detailed management plan and to continue to explore new sites to add to the culture sequence of this important valley, so we have a better understanding of early man and his culture. Madam Chair, inscription is a significant decision for Malaysians because this is our first archaeological site to be listed. It is important to the researchers and would certainly encourage them on. It is joyful news to the people living in this small town of Langong who have been cooperating and helping us in locating and protecting the sites. It is also very meaningful for me and my team of scientists who worked in this valley for more than 23 years. They will all be very excited to hear this very encouraging news. It is night time in Malaysia now, and Malaysians will awake to the news that they have long been waiting for. And thank you all very much. Thank you. Balshoi spasiba, and in my language, terima kasih.
Thank you very much, and congratulations once more. Dear colleagues, now we go to the other region, Europe, North America, new nominations. And now we move on to the landscape of Grand Pre, Canada. Decision 36.8b.27. ICOMOS, floor is yours.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Nous attendons les diapositives. Il manque la version française. Merci. Le paysage de Grand Pré, Canada. La recommandation est dans le document 8B, page 27 en français et 27 en anglais. L'État partie a envoyé une lettre d'erreur factuelle qui a été prise en compte dans l'évaluation. Suivant. Le marais de Grand Pré et les sites archéologiques des anciens villages associés de Grand Pré et de Hortonville constituent un paysage culturel qui témoigne d'un effort technique multiséculaire remarquable de poldérisation agricole dans une situation maritime au coefficient de marée exceptionnel. En termes de biens culturels, il s'agit d'un site et suivant les orientations, il s'agit également d'un paysage culturel. Suivant. Grand Pré est situé dans la partie méridionale de la baie Minas qui prolonge à l'intérieur des terres de la Nouvelle-Écosse la grande baie de Fundy. Il s'agit de l'un des lieux où l'on observe les plus grands marnages au monde d'une amplitude moyenne de 11,6 mètres. Suivant. Le bien de couleur saumon sur la carte est formé par une grande terre agricole résultant de la poldérisation d'une zone submersible. Le marais est situé entre l'île Long au nord et le littoral côtier au sud. Une partie de celui-ci fait partie du bien, comprenant le village acadien de Grand Pré et celui d'Hortonville. La zone tampon initiale a été agrandie pour prendre en compte les cônes de vision majeurs du paysage culturel depuis les villages jusqu'à la falaise nord de la baie. Suivant. Initialement, le marais de Grand Pré était recouvert d'eau par haute marée. Il comporte naturellement une végétation adaptée à l'humidité et à la salinité. La région est alors occupée par le peuple des Micmacs qui vit de chasse, de pêche et de cueillette. Suivant. La région est dénommée Acadie par les Français au XVIIe siècle. Les colons comprennent la richesse des terres alluviales du fond de la baie et ils entreprennent sa poldérisation qui prendra près de 2 siècles. Suivant. Le niveau exceptionnel des marais entraîne d'importantes difficultés techniques que les Acadiens relèvent avec ingéniosité par un système de digues d'argile renforcé de pieux de bois, de canaux et de vannes ou aboiteaux pour le drainage des terres conquises sur la mer. Suivant. L'aboiteau est une canalisation de bois enterré sous les digues et disposant de clapets anti-retour. Il permet l'évacuation de l'eau du marais vers la baie à marée basse, mais il se referme automatiquement lors de la montée des eaux. Outre le maintien hors d'eau permanent des sols, il réalise la désalinisation des terres. Suivant. Le marais contient quelques vestiges visibles de digues anciennes, aujourd'hui abandonnées, mais la plupart des témoignages hydrauliques historiques sont enfouis, dont des aboiteaux acadiens mis au jour par des fouilles archéologiques récentes. Suivant. Le marais correspond à une surface agricole toujours en exploitation d'un peu plus de 1300 hectares. Ils forment encore aujourd'hui l'un des territoires agricoles les plus productifs de toute l'Amérique du Nord. Suivant. La plus grande partie du parcellaire du XVIIIe siècle a été conservée. L'organisation traditionnelle, faite de fermes familiales et de travaux hydrauliques collectifs, est toujours en place pour la gestion quotidienne du marais. Suivant. Par sa position à mi-chemin entre la Nouvelle-Angleterre et la Nouvelle-France, l'Acadie devint un enjeu stratégique entre les deux grandes puissances du XVIIIe siècle. Bien qu'affirmant leur indépendance, les Acadiens sont pris en étau dans la guerre et ils sont expulsés de leurs terres à partir de 1755 au profit de nouveaux colons, les planters, qui poursuivent toutefois leur mode d'occupation du marais. Suivant. Les Acadiens connaissent alors une odyssée dramatique par leurs déportations successives entre l'Amérique du Nord, la France, l'Angleterre, les Caraïbes et l'Amérique latine. Ils sont à l'origine d'une diaspora qui conserva vivante sa culture et ses valeurs. Suivant. À compter du milieu du XIXe siècle, la population canadienne s'appropria l'histoire des Acadiens via des auteurs anglophones. Ils deviennent alors le symbole de l'une des premières populations indépendantes d'Amérique du Nord. Suivant. La communauté acadienne recouvrit la propriété de l'ancien village détruit de Grand-Pré au début du XXe siècle, qu'elle transforma alors en un parc mémoriel. Suivant. Devenu un lieu historique national du Canada, l'ancien village de Grand-Pré constitue aujourd'hui le principal lieu de rencontre de la diaspora acadienne. Suivant. Les conditions d'intégrité de l'ensemble matériel et paysager du bien sont réunies, ainsi que pour ses valeurs mémorielles et symboliques. Les conditions d'authenticité sont également remplies, tant pour les éléments matériels qu'immatériels. L'étude comparative est satisfaisante pour les éléments techniques liés à la polarisation de terres agricoles. Elle a été renforcée à la demande de l'ICOMOS pour la dimension symbolique d'un lieu de mémoire lié à une diaspora. La valeur universelle exceptionnelle a été démontrée et les critères 5 et 6 ont été justifiés. Suivant. La délimitation du bien est satisfaisante. La délimitation de la zone tampon a été étendue à la protection visuelle telle que nous l'avons vue sur la carte et elle est jugée satisfaisante. Les mesures de protection du bien sont adaptées et elles sont efficaces parce qu'elles correspondent à des orientations et à des choix clairs, bien acceptés par les habitants comme par la diaspora acadienne. La conservation du bien pourrait être menacée par l'instabilité côtière, due au courant de marée et par la possibilité de projets de développement dans l'environnement maritime et côtier. Une harmonisation du niveau de protection de tous les éléments archéologiques est également souhaitable. La gestion est satisfaisante, elle repose sur les anciennes traditions hydrauliques du Marais et sur son exploitation agricole familiale. Suivant. En conclusion, l'ICOMOS recommande que le paysage de Grand-Pré Canada soit inscrit sur la liste du patrimoine mondial sur la base des critères 5 et 6 en tant que paysage culturel. Suivant. L'ICOMOS recommande en outre d'harmoniser la gestion archéologique et de l'étendre aux environs côtiers du bien, ainsi que d'approfondir le dispositif de suivi du bien pour l'usage des sols et du bâti. Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you very much. Are any objection to inscribe the site in the list of World Heritage Index? World Heritage list. Are any objections?
Can we please add the state party before that?
No, I will give after that. So, any objection to inscribe landscape of Grand Pré in the list of World Heritage? I see none, so inscribed. Congratulations, State Party. Dear colleagues from Canada, you have the floor. Floor is yours, dear colleagues from Canada.
Madame la Présidente, en qualité de coprésident du Conseil consultatif qui, durant 5 années, a préparé la proposition du paysage de Grand Pré, en son nom et en mon nom personnel, je vous remercie bien sincèrement, ainsi que les distingués membres du Comité de patrimoine mondial de l'UNESCO, de la décision que vous venez de rendre. Aussi, je remercie ICOMOS pour ses conseils précieux et sa recommandation favorable. La reconnaissance du paysage de Grand Pré comme patrimoine mondial de l'UNESCO vient consacrer le travail ingénieux entrepris par le peuple acadien il y a plus de 3 siècles. Les planters de la Nouvelle-Angleterre, leurs descendants, ainsi que tous les autres qui ont suivi, ont continué cette entreprise avec détermination et vision. La désignation concrétise surtout pour le peuple acadien à travers le monde la valeur symbolique exceptionnelle de ce lieu de mémoire. Enfin, Elle couronne le cheminement de réconciliation paisible envers son histoire à la fois remarquable et tragique. C'est véritablement une terre riche d'histoire et un héritage en commun pour tous les peuples de la terre à apprécier. I would like to take this opportunity to sincerely thank Parks Canada for all its assistance, advice, and support that was provided in the development of this successful nomination. Parks Canada is and continues to be a key partner at Grand Pré. I would also like to thank the 3 levels of government, non-government agencies, and numerous partner organizations and volunteers that have continuously and vigorously supported our endeavor. The local community of Grand Pré and area, the Mi'kmaq people, and the Acadian people worked diligently together to share this place that is dear to us with the world. We are proud of our collective accomplishment and anxious to welcome the world to this exceptional landscape. We are most grateful to the members of the World Heritage Committee for rendering this decision, thus recognizing the outstanding universal value of the landscape of Grand Pré. Thank you.
Bravo. Thank you very much. Congratulations once more. Dear colleagues, before we move to the next item, I would like to consult with you. I have 2 requests from the European countries. One from Spain, which is recommended for inscription, and the other Portugal to take now for our decision their sites, because they have to leave today evening. Do you have any objection? Yes, please, Chamini.
Madam Chair, thank you very much for giving me the floor. Germany asked for open the Bayreuth dossier this evening as well, because the Lord Mayor of Bayreuth, who is with us since 2 days, has to leave, and therefore we kindly ask to open this document as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. No, it's within one, would say, committee members, if you have nothing against, so we can start immediately, and then it will be the Germany site.
Spain, Portugal, Germany.
So now we move on to the site which is in document 36com 8b.39, Heritage of Mercury, Almaden and Idrija, Slovenia, Spain. ICOMOS, floor is yours.
Merci Madame la Présidente. Nous attendons les diapositives. Le patrimoine du Mercure, Almaden et Idrija, Slovénie, Espagne. La recommandation est dans le document 8B, page 35 en français et page 32 en anglais. Suivant. La 34e session du comité a examiné en 2010 une proposition d'inscription qui englobait celle que nous examinons ici. Dénommée binôme du mercure et de l'argent, Almaden, Idrija et San Luis Potosí, elle reposait sur 3 sites miniers et industriels dans 3 États différents, 2 en Europe et 1 en Amérique latine. Cette proposition fut alors différée pour les motifs rappelés à l'écran. La proposition actuelle est recentrée sur le patrimoine des mines de mercure et sur son extraction industrielle. Suivant. Le mercure est un métal relativement rare, aux usages longtemps irremplaçables dans divers procédés techniques, chimiques ou industriels. Il n'a été produit en quantité notable et durablement que par quelques rares mines dans le monde, dont les deux plus importantes furent jusqu'à une période récente Almaden en Espagne et Idrija en Slovénie. En termes de biens culturels, il s'agit d'une série constituée de deux ensembles suivants. Almaden est une mine de mercure exploitée depuis l'Antiquité. Située dans le centre-sud de l'Espagne, elle était en relation avec les ports de Séville et de Cadix. Idrija est une mine exploitée depuis le Moyen-Âge tardif, à proximité de la frontière italienne et du port de Trieste. Suivant. À Almaden, le bien, délimité en rouge, comprend une grande zone continue avec le site minier principal et une partie de la vieille ville, ainsi que 4 sites monumentaux urbains en relation avec l'histoire minière et industrielle. Une vaste zone tampon, naturelle, urbaine et périurbaine en sert le bien. Elle est délimitée en jaune sur la carte. Suivant. Le site industriel a été arrêté récemment, au début des années 2000. Il se présente aujourd'hui comme une vaste friche industrielle en limite de la ville d'Almaden. L'essentiel des bâtiments de l'entreprise minière a été conservé en l'état, car il n'y a pas eu de reconversion industrielle envisagée. Suivant. L'implantation industrielle est sur une proéminence collinaire bien visible sur cette photo. Elle constitue la partie occidentale du bien qui se prolonge en direction de la ville ancienne. Suivant. Almaden et Idrija furent les deux principaux centres d'extraction mondiaux du mercure, un métal stratégique jusqu'à une période récente. Le site d'Almaden contient de nombreux vestiges techniques et industriels de l'exploitation du mercure. Suivant. Certains vestiges sont uniques, comme le four Bustamante, récemment restauré. Ils montrent bien les étapes historiques d'une industrie minière très spécifique. Suivant. Les anciennes galeries de mines sont très nombreuses et elles permettent de bien comprendre les différentes époques de l'exploitation du minerai mercuriel, le cinabre. Une production intensive de mercure à Almaden accompagne le développement des mines d'argent et d'or dans le Nouveau Monde depuis la fin du XVIe siècle. Suivant. La partie urbaine du bien à Almaden montre l'habitat des mineurs et de leurs dirigeants. Diverses portes, parfois bien conservées, ouvraient le site minier vers la ville et vers la route conduisant au port de l'Andalousie. Suivant. Le bien comprend un ensemble d'édifices publics consacrés à la vie professionnelle et sociale de la mine, comme l'hôpital des mineurs, l'Académie des mines ou les arènes. Suivant. Plusieurs de ces bâtiments ont été reconvertis en musées ou en lieux de mémoire, comme pour les vestiges de l'ancien bagne qui fournit très longtemps une grande part de la force de travail. Suivant. Les pentes du site minier principal contiennent les scories de l'exploitation minière. Elles ont été traitées sur place à grande échelle en vue de leur contrôle en termes de pollution possible du sous-sol. Suivant. À Almaden, la coordination entre les services en charge du développement urbain et ceux en charge de la protection et de la conservation du bien sont à renforcer. La prise en compte du bien et de sa protection au sein du plan directeur de la ville n'ayant eu lieu que très tardivement à la demande explicite de l'ICOMOS, lettre du 12 décembre 2011. Suivant. À Idrija, le bien comprend 7 zones distinctes correspondant à la vieille ville et à ses installations industrielles. Au four numéro 2, au puits Joseph et au départ de la route du Mercure. Enfin, à 4 retenues hydrauliques dans les environs. La zone tampon principale a récemment été étendue et complétée par 3 zones tampons pour les retenues d'eau. Suivant. La vue générale d'Idrija montre son environnement montagneux et son site minier exploitant les alluvions riches en minerais mercuriels. Seulement 4 ou 5 localisations principales de minerais mercuriels ont été historiquement exploitées de par le monde. Suivant. Au début du XVIe siècle, la mine d'Idrija se développe sous le contrôle de la République de Venise, puis sous la dynastie minière des Fugger et des Habsbourg, qui règne sur l'Europe centrale, l'Espagne et les Pays-Bas. Suivant. L'exploitation minière a cessé à Idrija durant les années 1990, tout en laissant un important patrimoine industriel et urbain. Un inventaire systématique du patrimoine industriel est nécessaire en vue de sa conservation. Suivant. D'importants vestiges sont encore en place et permettent une bonne compréhension du système socio-technique propre à l'exploitation du minerai mercuriel et de sa transformation en mercure métallique. Suivant. Comme à Almaden, un important patrimoine de galeries souterraines, parfois très anciennes, demeure sous terre. Pour des raisons de sécurité, ils ne sont pas visitables. Suivant. Le bien comprend 4 retenues d'eau à caractère monumental qui remontent au XVIIIe et au XIXe siècle. Elles apportaient l'énergie hydraulique et permettaient le transport des bois de mine depuis la montagne. Suivant. Les monuments, comme le château et son usage pour le stockage du mercure, les éléments urbains rappellent en permanence la place de la mine dans l'histoire de la ville. Suivant. Un habitat urbain spécifique pour les mineurs a été développé. Une documentation permet de suivre l'histoire sociale, de la prévention contre les maladies mercurielles et de la difficile compréhension scientifique de ces dangers humains et environnementaux. Suivant. L'intégrité et l'authenticité des biens proposés ont été jugées satisfaisantes. L'analyse comparative montre que les 2 sites proposés sont d'une part les plus importants historiquement et les mieux conservés. D'autre part, que l'activité de l'extraction du mercure constitue un système socio-technique unique. Les critères 2 et 4 ont été démontrés. Les arguments évoqués sont cependant insuffisants pour pleinement démontrer le critère 5, car seule la pollution mercurielle apporte un élément réellement distinctif par rapport à d'autres types d'utilisation minière des territoires. Suivant. Les délimitations des biens et de leurs zones tampons sont appropriées, les protections légales en place sont appropriées et des garanties ont été apportées quant à la prise en compte effective des zones tampons dans les plans d'urbanisme des 2 villes. L'ICOMOS rappelle la nécessité d'informer le comité de tout projet urbain risquant d'affecter l'intégrité visuelle du bien, conformément au paragraphe 172 des orientations, notamment à Almaden. La situation de la conservation a progressé ces dernières années de manière notable, notamment par la conservation urbaine à Almaden comme à Idrija. Un effort est également entrepris pour la conservation des sites miniers et industriels. Le système de gestion des 2 biens est globalement approprié, mais la coordination entre les services municipaux en charge de l'urbanisme et l'organisation en charge de la protection et de la conservation du bien doit être renforcée à Almaden. Suivant. L'ICOMOS recommande que le patrimoine du mercure Almaden et Idrija, Espagne, Slovénie, soit inscrit sur la liste du patrimoine mondial sur la base des critères 2 et 5. Suivant. L'ICOMOS recommande en outre aux États parties différentes mesures techniques évoquées au cours de cette présentation. Je vous remercie, Madame la Présidente.
Yes. Okay. Thank you very much. Mexico, you have some objections? No?
Gracias, señora presidenta. Quisiera solamente dejar asentada el reconocimiento y el agradecimiento y felicitación de México a los 2 países involucrados en esta presentación de este proyecto y dejar también en actas que este es un ejemplo de la cooperación que debe privar en esta convención, pero también de la interrelación cultural y vinculación histórica que tiene el patrimonio universal, aún entre países que están muy alejados entre sí. Por eso quisiera, antes de tomar la decisión, expresar nuestro reconocimiento y nuestra satisfacción porque se esté abordando este proyecto el día de hoy. Gracias, señora presidenta.
Thank you very much. So, can we consider, if there are no objections, that the site, Heritage of Mercury, Almaden and Idrija, Slovenia, Spain, decision number 36-8B.39 is adopted. Congratulations, State Party. as I see the both state parties sit together, so I first give the floor to Slovenia, how it is in our draft decision. Slovenia, floor is yours.
Уважаема госпожа председател, уважаеми господа, позвольте мне по-русски выразить признательность тем, кто нас принимает в Санкт-Петербурге. От имени Республики Словения я хотела бы поблагодарить государства, члены Комитета всемирного наследия за принятое им решение о внесении в список всемирного наследия серийной номинации «История ртути», которая рассматривалась с вами в третий раз, теперь уже после концептуального пересмотра и в доработочном виде, в результате чего получила вашу поддержку. Два крупнейших ртутных рудника в мире четким и стройным образом иллюстрируют историю и эволюцию добычи этого важного сырья со всеми техническими, промышленно-экономическими и социальными аспектами, которые в совокупности нашли свое выражение как в сохранившихся материальных свидетельствах этого вида деятельности в Алмадине и Идрии, так и в элементах материального плана, связанных с образом жизни в шахтерской среде. Мы благодарим вас за профессиональный подход, а также техническую и человеческую поддержку, которая оказывалась нам в ходе представления данной номинации со стороны государств, Центра всемирного наследия и ICOMOS. Мы уверены в том, что этот вклад технического наследия, который сегодня вносится нами в список, представляет важность для всего мирового сообщества, и мы будем прилагать усилия к тому, чтобы заповеданная территория сохранилась в длительной перспективе при преемственности управления ее. В этом и заключается основной объем ответственности обоих наших государств, Словении и Испании. Мы рады тому, что наше доброе взаимодействие будет поддерживаться и впредь. В период, когда отмечается 40-летний юбилей Конвенции, мы оправданно выводим на первый план роль органов местной администрации в деле сохранения нашего общего культурного наследия, а также необходимость включения в этот процесс факторов на всех уровнях. Мы даем высокую оценку их неустанному стремлению к дальнейшему продвижению и развитию, основанному на культурном богатстве и природных сокровищах региона. В заключение позвольте мне пригласить вас посетить Идрию и передать слово нашим уважаемым коллегам из Испании. Спасибо. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Spain, you have the floor.
Sí. Muchas gracias, señora presidenta. Como director general de Bellas Artes, en nombre del Ministerio de Educación, Cultura y Deporte de España, deseo expresar mi agradecimiento, en primer lugar, a la Presidencia y a la Organización de la Federación Rusa, a la UNESCO y a todos los miembros del Comité por el reconocimiento que se acaba de otorgar a este bien, el patrimonio del Mercurio, Almadén e Idria. También quiero hacer una mención especial en los agradecimientos a todas las personas que nos están atendiendo con tanto cariño y amabilidad, los voluntarios. Realmente nos encontramos muy cómodos en esta reunión y no solo es una expresión personal, sino creo que de muchas personas, de todas las personas con las que he hablado. Esta nueva inscripción ha sido fruto del esfuerzo compartido entre dos países, como se ha señalado. La inclusión del patrimonio minero de Almadén y de Idria en la lista de patrimonio mundial es, por un lado, evidentemente la culminación de un largo proceso, pero es sobre todo el inicio de una nueva etapa de colaboración y compromiso compartido entre ambos países, que ayudará a reforzar la conservación de los valores extraordinarios, de los valores universales de estos dos bienes, así como a difundirlos a nivel internacional, que es lo que deseamos los dos países. Desearía transmitir mi más profundo agradecimiento y amistad a Eslovenia, con quienes hemos recorrido este largo camino. Y igualmente trasladar, alcalde, a los habitantes de Almadén y de Idria, alcalde también de Idria, para quienes esos bienes forman parte de su historia, de sus vidas, que son expresión de un esfuerzo humano único de interacción con el medio en la lucha por la vida, porque hay mucha lucha por la vida detrás de estos bienes, y hoy forma parte esa lucha por la vida de su identidad, y el reconocimiento a su identidad que reciben hoy en esta sesión pues tiene un valor extraordinario. Señora Presidenta, a veces las circunstancias, los datos nos transmiten mensajes simbólicos sin quererlo. La circunstancia es, en este caso, en este momento, la celebración de este comité en la ciudad de San Petersburgo, esta bella y amable ciudad que nos ha recibido, en la que precisamente vivió 16 años al servicio del zar Alejandro I, un gran ingeniero español, un ingeniero en aquella época de relieve internacional, Agustín de Betancourt, que llegó a ser nombrado mariscal, fue el director de Plan de Vías y Comunicaciones de Rusia, viajó por todo el imperio para hacer un plan, un gran informe sobre las comunicaciones, tuvo numerosas actuaciones importantísimas que todavía perviven en esta ciudad, fue director del Centro de Vías y Caminos. Pues bien, lo que quiero señalar ahora es que este extraordinario ingeniero que colaboró con dos países, con el suyo de origen, una etapa de su vida profesional, España, y con el suyo de destino en esta ciudad de San Petersburgo, donde falleció después de vivir 16 años, falleció en 1824, y que tuvo una sensibilidad muy artística, estudió en la Real Academia de Bellas Artes de España. Pues bien, esta persona fue la que redactó precisamente 3 importantísimos informes técnicos sobre la mina de Almadén en unos años, en su primera etapa profesional, en los que vivió allí. Es decir, que encontramos unidos en esta declaración Almadén, Idria y San Petersburgo. Con esto querría pedirle al alcalde de Almadén que tenga una breve salutación.
Muy bien, gracias. Buenas tardes. En primer lugar, felicitar a la presidenta por extraordinaria organización de este comité. En nombre del Ayuntamiento de Almadén, al que tengo el honor de representar, en nombre de todo el pueblo de Almadén, le doy las gracias a los miembros del comité de la UNESCO por votar a favor de la inscripción de nuestra candidatura, el patrimonio del Mercurio, Almadén e Idria. Gracias a ICOMOS por recomendar la inscripción del bien. Gracias a todas las instituciones de Eslovenia y España que han colaborado en la elaboración del expediente de esta candidatura. Gracias al Ministerio de Cultura de Eslovenia, al Ayuntamiento de Idria, al Ministerio Español de Educación, Cultura y Deportes, a la Consejería de Cultura de la Junta de Comunidades de Castilla-La Mancha, a Minas de Almadén y a la Escuela Universitaria de Almadén. Gracias a todas las personas que durante todos estos años han trabajado en pos del objetivo que hoy hemos conseguido. Estamos muy contentos, muy satisfechos y muy orgullosos de este reconocimiento mundial a nuestro patrimonio minero-industrial, a nuestro patrimonio cultural. Es el reconocimiento al legado que nos han dejado cientos de años, miles de años en el caso de Almadén, dedicados a la minería del mercurio. Para nosotros, este reconocimiento es también un homenaje a todas las generaciones de mineros que durante siglos han dado su trabajo, su esfuerzo e incluso sus vidas en las minas de mercurio. Nuestra más sincera enhorabuena y felicitación a Eslovenia y también una felicitación especial a nuestra ciudad hermana Idria. Gracias por su atención.
Muchas gracias a usted. Y felicitaciones a España. Dear colleagues, now we move on to the other property. It's Margravial Opera House, Bayreuth, Germany. It's decision number 36,8B.30. ICOMOS, floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Margravial Opera House at Bayreuth in Germany. Next slide, please. This shows a map locating Bayreuth in the southeast of Germany and a map of the town. Next slide, please. The 18th century Margravial Opera House in Bayreuth is a masterwork of Baroque theatre architecture. It was commissioned by the Margravine of Brandenburg as a venue for opera seria, over which the princely couple presided. The bell-shaped auditorium of tiered loges built of wood lined with decorative painted canvas was designed by the then leading European theatre architect Giuseppe Galli Bibiena. It survives as the only entirely preserved example of court opera house architecture where Baroque opera culture and acoustics can be authentically experienced. Next slide, please. In terms of categories, this is a monument. Next slide, please. What has been nominated is the Opera House itself, which is marked in red on this slide, and the buffer zone in yellow surrounding it, which includes part of the town. Next slide, please. The Opera House was built between 1745 and 1750 and faces across a carefully contrived open space to create an urban focal point in the town. The Opera House was commissioned by the Margravine of Bayreuth, that is, the wife of the ruler, the Margrave, as she was a keen amateur of opera and in 1737 became director of the court opera. She commissioned a new opera house and was influenced strongly by the new Berlin Opera House, which had been built a bit earlier by her brother. This opera house in Berlin was the first freestanding monumental city theatre. Next slide, please. Like Berlin, the Bayreuth Theatre is not a court theatre within a range of palace buildings, but rather a freestanding structure within an urban setting, thus foreshadowing the great public theatres that were built in the 19th century. The monumental facade was designed by Bayreuth's French court architect, Joseph Saint-Pierre. Next slide, please. Along the top of the balustrade, there are full-size figures running along the length of it in front of the roof. Next slide, please. The entrance to the Opera House is via a low vestibule, which opens to a full-height foyer, where the Margrave's arrival was celebrated. Next slide, please. The upward progress of the rulers, the Margrave and his wife, could be observed by the audience from 3 concave tiers of balustraded galleries on either side, which match the height of the boxes or loges within the auditorium. Next slide, please. The design of the interior was carried out by a different architect from the exterior. This was the Italian architect Giuseppe Galli Bibiena, one of the Bibiena family, who became famous as designers of opera houses. The auditorium's bell-shaped ground plan, lined with 3 tiers of loges or boxes, is typical of Italian opera houses of the period. The theatre was one of the largest of its time in Europe when it opened in 1747. Next slide, please. Within the building's shell, the auditorium and proscenium arch and so on were constructed as a building within a building. The tiers of loges are encased in a half-timbered structure and supported by the beams of the galleries. So the interior of the building is entirely of wood and canvas. It's decorated in late Italian Baroque style and elaborately painted in color scheme of blues, greens, and gilts. Rich paintings and sculptures celebrate Apollo, god of the arts, and the Margrave Friedrich. Next slide, please. The loge structure, with its half-timber construction, is an example of the sort of ephemeral architecture which played an outstanding role in Baroque court ceremonies. Next slide, please. This now is the earliest surviving example of this type of building. The Berlin Opera House no longer exists, and many others have been destroyed by fire. Next slide, please. To one side of the stage is the loge for trumpeters to herald the arrival of the Margrave and his wife. Next slide, please. The Margrave Opera House has the further distinction of being directly connected to a princely family of 18th century ruling class whose exploits were often portrayed in the opera productions which actually were carried out in the building. The plots of these opera seria were typically set at court and evolved around emotions and their surroundings, their surmounting by means of virtue. Next slide, please. Depicted on the ceiling of the auditorium is a view of the heavens. As a Prince of Peace and active supporter of the arts, it was Apollo that's identified here. And Athena, the goddess of wisdom in war and peace, is at his side, representing the Margravine. Next slide, please. The building functioned as the court opera house for only 25 years until the Margravine and then the Margrave died. And since then was only used sporadically as a performance venue until it was restored in the 20th century. Next slide, please. And there are just a few more slides. This one, the next one, please. The next one, please, of the elaborate decorations within. Next one, please. Restoration works during the 1930s were carried out on the loge structures. This included the reducing the stage opening and the installation of new equipment to allow the theatre to function in a modern way. The canvas lining was extensively stabilized, and later insertions in the foyer area were removed. Next slide, please. The demands of a modern venue have prevailed from the 1960s onwards, and the equipment has been renewed, which means the loss of the last examples of the original machinery from the 18th and 19th centuries. Next slide, please. ICOMOS considers that integrity, authenticity are satisfied. The comparative analysis is extensive and gives detailed comparisons of extant opera houses, and we consider that on the basis of that, this one certainly can be seen as having a place in the World Heritage List. We consider that criteria 1 and 4 have been satisfied, the boundaries, protection and management and conservation are adequate, but however we do feel that the management could be strengthened, particularly in terms of fire protection. Fire is such a threat to theatres of this kind that we feel that fire protection should be strengthened in the context of an overall risk management plan. Next slide, please. In conclusion, ICOMOS recommends that this Margravial Opera House at Bayreuth should be inscribed on the World Heritage List on the basis of criteria 1 and 4. We have some recommendations, next slide please, which picks up the idea of developing a risk preparedness plan and a visitor management plan within the existing management plan, and ensuring that in the future all interventions planned are done according to the abundant documentation and research which is in the hands of the Bavarian authorities. We also consider that more specific key indicators need to be defined relating to the attributes of OUV. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Dear colleagues, we have recommendation of the inscription of this site. Are any objections? I see none, so I propose to approve the decision 36.8b.30, Margravial Opera House, Bayreuth, Germany. Adopted. Congratulations. I'm very glad to see here the Lord Mayor of this town, and I would like to give you the floor. Madam, floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Madam President. You see, we're totally happy I have the pleasure to thank in the name of all. We take the advice of ICOMOS very, very seriously, and I can inform you that the state government, who is to my right, Mr. Nietzsche, they are ready to install the fire protection service. With this, I don't talk long. You know how much we are committed. This has taken 8 years of preparation, diligent preparation, and I hand over to Brigitte Merck-Erbe, who is the Lord Mayor of Bayreuth, and you may find great as me that her name means consider it, watch out, realize, heritage. That's the literal translation of Merck-Erbe. So with this, I give it to her. With her is also Dr. Wiesnet, who has been working on this issue very, very intensively.
Dear Madam Chair, dear members of the World Heritage Committee, on behalf of the city of Bayreuth, its inhabitants, and on behalf of the Free State of Bavaria, I would like to wholeheartedly thank you for your decision to inscribe our jewel, the Margareviel Opera House, on the World Heritage List. We are aware that this is a very great honor to us, and we are happy that the Margareviel Opera House will now gain a worldwide reputation, a reputation which has until today only the second opera house in Bayreuth, the Richard Wagner Festival Hall. Ladies and gentlemen, please let me ensure that both the city of Bayreuth and the Free State of Bavaria will take all measures which are necessary to protect and conserve the outstanding universal value of this jewel of Baroque architecture. Thank you, Madam Chair. Hope to see you all in Bayreuth.
Thank you very much. Once more, congratulations. So, dear colleagues, now we move on to the next item. It's garrison border town of Elvas and its fortification. Portugal, decision number 36.8b.34. ICOMOS, floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Here's a location map of Elvas on the border of Spain and Portugal. Next slide, please. Guarding the key border crossing between Portugal's capital Lisbon and Spain's capital Madrid in an undulating riverine landscape, the garrison town of Elvas was fortified extensively from the 17th to the 19th century to become the largest bulwarked dry ditch system in the world. The town was surrounded by outlying forts built on hills to accommodate the changing needs of defensive warfare, and supplied with water by a 7-kilometer-long aqueduct. Within the walls, the town contains extensive barracks and other military buildings, as well as churches and monasteries. Next slide, please. In terms of categories, this is a group of buildings. Next slide, please. From this slide, you can see that the property nominated has 7 components, all within one buffer zone. These are the town, the fortified walls, the surrounding forts, and an aqueduct, which is the long line to the left. Next slide, please. The historic centre, with its castles, remnant walls, and civil and religious buildings, demonstrates the development of Elvas as 3 successive walled towns from the 10th to the 14th century. Next slide, please. Elvas developed from the early medieval period to the 16th century and contains churches and monasteries, as well as military buildings. Remains of the first medieval Arab wall, which date to the 10th century, can be seen in various places. The second medieval wall extended the city in a broad arch. Next slide, please. The third wall, the Fernandina Wall, was built in the 14th century. However, it was from the time of the restoration of Portuguese independence in 1640 that the great fortification scheme that can be seen today began to take shape. Profound changes in systems of fortifications were required to counter the development in modern artillery and warfare from the 17th century onwards. The last medieval Fernandina wall was now considered vulnerable to anticipated attacks from Spain, and consequently rebuilt the latest and most sophisticated fortification designs then available. The wall was demolished, and the new wall built more or less along the same line as this major fortification works were undertaken. Elvas developed into a heavily fortified garrison town. Next slide, please. The new fortifications were designed by the Dutch Jesuit Cosmander, based on the treatise of a fortification engineer, and with involvement of Dutch and French engineers. Cosmander applied the geometric theories to the irregular topography to produce a defensive system considered a masterpiece of its time. The town's fortification comprised 12 forts inserted in an irregular polygon, roughly describing a broad segment of a circle centered on the castle, with a radius of almost a kilometer. And there was one fort immediately outside the town in the direction of attack, which you can see to the south. Next line, please. This is this outlying fort to the south, Santa Lucia, which was built to the southeast to preempt any siege from that direction. It was connected to the town by a covered way, the line of which is now crossed by a road that connects Elvas to the border. This fort of Santa Lucia is essentially rectangular, with 4 projecting bulwarks at each corner. Next slide. Within, the former store and barracks now house the military museum. This new bulwarked fortification of Elvas and this fort was sufficiently in place in time for the Great Battle of the Lines of Elvas in 1659, a battle which is regularly commemorated in Elvas today. Next slide, please. By the second half of the 18th century, the effective range of cannon had increased to such an extent that it was necessary to build another preemptive fort on the prominence of Monte de Gracia to the north. This was begun in 1763, and this fort is a major piece of military architecture comprising 3 lines of defense with 2 ditches, and the design is attributed to the Count of Lippe and based on the first Vauban system. Next slide. This is a view from the town towards this fort, and the visual linkage between the various elements of this fortification system is absolutely crucial. Next slide. Within this later fort, the octagonal military governor's house is located in the center, as you can see here. Next slide, please. At the beginning of the 19th century, in anticipation of French invasions, 4 further preemptive fortlets, small forts, were built at key commanding points, and 3 of these survive. Next slide. What enabled the Elvas stronghold to withstand a lengthy siege was this aqueduct. It's 7 kilometers long, built in the 16th and early 17th centuries, and supplied the town with water, and it's protected by one of the small forts. Next slide. Elvas is more than a military fort. In its town, there are monasteries and military buildings, and together with its satellite forts and fortlets, it's much more of an intact military landscape. ICOMOS is satisfied that comparative analysis has demonstrated that Elvas does not have comparators on the list of World Heritage or elsewhere. Next slide, please. The property overall is dominant in the landscape and can still be seen as a strong and symbolic presence in the territory. The visual integrity of the nominated property is retained overall, but in places is highly vulnerable, as a new 5-story commercial development, while not impacting on views between the elements of the landscape, is an unfortunate intrusion into the urban landscape. It's located near the fort of Santa Lucia. ICOMOS considers that views of the fortifications from a distance and between each other are extremely important to the overall integrity of the property and its setting. It is also important to control the visual impact of any new development such that it harmonizes with the urban fabric. The buffer zone, which was revised by the State Party, now covers the views between the various components, except for one part, and that is the direct line between the fortlet of São Domingos and the fort of Gracia. And between these two, there is an urban settlement, which ICOMOS considers should be within the buffer zone. Next slide, please. As the remains of an enormous war fortress, Elvas is exceptional, with visual and functional relationships between its fortifications. But these are vulnerable, and we consider that effective protection needs to be put in place to maintain these crucial relationships, which allow an understanding of how this great war machine functioned. Next slide, please. So thus, we consider that integrity is satisfied, although vulnerable, authenticity and comparative analysis is satisfactory, and the property satisfies criterion 4 as an exceptional, outstanding example of military fortifications closely linked to a period of European history. We consider that the protection needs strengthening in terms of protection for the buffer zone. We also consider that the management needs strengthening. There is a management plan, and this proposes an office for the fortifications of Elvas, but this still needs to be set up in order to implement the plan. Next slide, please. So in conclusion, ICOMOS recommends that the nomination of the garrison border town of Elvas should be referred back to the State Party in order to allow it to designate the whole nominated property as a special protection area, to extend the management system, to put in place controls for all the view lines, and to set up the office for the fortifications of Elvas. ICOMOS would like to say that we acknowledge the factual error letter that has been received from the State Party. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. The floor is open. Who wants to take the floor? I see nobody. So, reporter, may I ask you, do we have any amendments to the draft decision?
No, Madam Chair, there are no amendments proposed for this decision.
Switzerland, please take the floor.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Excusez-moi, nous avions quand même une question à l'État parti, parce que nous aimerions savoir comment la zone des alentours, donc la zone tampon, est légalement protégée actuellement et quels sont les effets de cette protection légale en vigueur en ce moment. Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you very much. Mexico.
Gracias, señora presidenta. Sabemos la importancia de Elvas como una ciudad fortificada en la frontera entre España y Portugal, en el Alentejo. Sabemos de la buena conservación del casco urbano y del paisaje circundante. Sin embargo, México tiene una pregunta que hacerle al Estado parte que nos parece fundamental en este momento, dado que una de las principales características que el órgano consultivo da como rasgo fundamental de la ciudad de Elva es la zona fortificada. Quisiéramos saber cuáles son las medidas que el Estado ha tomado para garantizar en un futuro el modo de gestión de todas las guarniciones y de toda la estructura que forma parte de las murallas y de los bastiones de las fortalezas que protegen a esta gran ciudad del patrimonio portugués. Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much. Portugal, you have the floor to answer the questions. Thank you.
I thank you very much, Madam Chairperson, for this opportunity to inform the committee about the remaining questions related to the draft decision on the garrison border town of Elvas and its fortifications. I also want to thank ICOMOS for the work done and for its comments, which were and will be very useful. According to the draft resolution, Madam Chairperson, the inscription of the state should be delayed and the matter should be referred back to the state party in order to implement some of its recommendations. ICOMOS evaluation selected 3 main recommendations, and they were expressed by its representative, to be followed in order to allow the site to be included in the list. Allow me, Madam Chairperson, to make a brief reference to each of these 3 points. First of all, the degree of protection guaranteed by the site. It should be noted that all, I repeat, all of the fortresses are considered national monuments, some of them since 1906. The draft resolution notes that the intramural is not yet a national monument, but I must stress that at this very moment, this is a classification process, and under the Portuguese law, a classification process freezes any kind of changes, so it gives total and full protection. Another aspect, and was referred to one of the questions, is the question in the buffer zone and the points that need a slight modification to be introduced in the buffer zone map in order to guarantee what was mentioned, the protection of the view line between 2 of the 7 fortresses. I must underline that there are only 2 of 7 fortresses which are not covered by the extension of the buffer zone map. A protection of the view line between these 2 fortresses is underway under a legislative initiative, and there is already a plan to extend the map and to correct it, as it was done before under information from ICOMOS. We intend to go along with the last recommendation, so we are prepared to do that. In what concerns the last point mentioned by ICOMOS, the creation of the Office for the Fortification of Elvas, I am delighted to inform you that officially this body was created in the 23rd of last month of May. So I think, Madam Chairperson, that taking into account what I mentioned, and putting into consideration all the global equilibrium between the recommendations and what has been done by the State Party, I think this item should be included in the list today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Senegal, floor is yours.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. C'est juste pour demander à l'État partie de nous informer sur les mesures de protection qui ont été prises dans la zone intramuros. Merci.
Thank you very much. Japan, please take the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Listening the clarification made by State Party, I believe it's very convincing, and we'd like to request that this site be inscribed, because almost all requirements for the inscription seem to be clear and satisfied. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Germany, take the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a question to the Portuguese head of delegation, my distinguished colleague. The question is, by when does the State Party think they will have it ready? Will it be earlier than next year already? Will it be in the next time? Then I would say what we can protect, we should protect. Thank you.
Thank you very much. State Party, Portugal, you have 2 questions. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Regarding the question which was put forward by the delegate of Senegal, I would like to note, as I said, that the intramural protection at this very moment is covered by the fact that this is under classification. And this classification makes immediately freezes any kind of changes according to the Portuguese law. And I would also inform, and that would be something on the top of that, that according also to the Portuguese law, and I know that this is very unusual in the world, any kind of item which is considered by UNESCO as World Heritage immediately is covered automatically by as a national monument. So this clear decision taken today would immediately be considered as protecting this zone completely. In what concerns the measures which will be taken, The perspective that we have, and answering the question put forward by the delegation of Germany, we expect until the end of this year to have this ratification in the buffer zone complete. This is the only point in the map which puts some questions, and I would like to stress once again that we are talking about the view line between 2 fortresses among 7 fortresses. And this is just a residual part, I would say, almost bureaucratic in terms of the planning of the buffer zone, which is completed. And I must say that the managing planning is already put into practice. Some of the aspects are already into practice. And as soon as we have the recognition by the World Heritage, all the other measures can be implemented more easily. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Dear colleagues, so we have 2 proposals. One is here to refer, and the other was proposed by Japan to inscribe. But we don't have any paper to inscribe. It's necessary to have the outstanding universal value statement. And we have no written proposal done here. Can ask Secretariat if, but I would like, if all the countries support such proposal to inscribe this site in the list, World Heritage List. So we need some time to prepare the decision. Thank you very much. So, dear colleagues, what, we inscribe this site or we refer? I want to hear once more. Qatar, France, please, but very briefly.
شكرا سيدة الرئيسة. نعتقد بأن الأجوبة التي تقدمت بها الدولة الطرف مقنعة وندعو للتسجيل. شكرا.
France, please. The floor is yours.
Merci Madame la Présidente. Je crois que naturellement, il faut que l'État partie suive les conseils de l'ICOMOS, mais qu'on peut aussi faire confiance au Portugal et nous soutenons l'idée d'une inscription. Je vous remercie.
Thank you very much. But if all you raise your nameplates to support, so can we consider that we support the sites for inscription? So it means that I would ask Secretariat to prepare the draft decision for inscription. Yes, Colombia, please take the floor.
Gracias, señora Presidenta. El criterio que le aceptan es el criterio 4, donde ICOMOS considera una justificación que podría ser dada en la página 278, si se pudieran trabajar con eso, porque ahí se le está aceptando que tiene valor universal en el criterio 4, porque los otros 2 criterios no lo tienen, entonces se podría trabajar con eso. Gracias, señora Presidenta.
Thank you very much, but ICOMOS now will prepare the statement of outstanding universal value, which we have to incorporate in the draft decision if we inscribe the site. So now I would like that we stop the discussion on this site and decision and ask the Secretary to prepare the draft decision, which we can adopt. And now we move on to the other site. It is ready? They say that it is ready, so please put on the screen. Reporter, floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Following the decision of the committee, we will keep paragraph 1 as it was in the original version, and on paragraph 2 it will read, inscribes the garrison border town of Elvas and its fortifications, Portugal, on the World Heritage List on the basis of criteria 4.
Thank you very much. Are any objections? I see none, so adopted.
Yes. Should I continue?
Yes, please.
Okay, paragraph 3 will read, adopts the following statement of outstanding universal value, and this statement was already provided by ICOMOS, Madam Chairperson.
Thank you very much. Are anybody against to adopt the paragraph 3 as proposed by ICOMOS? I see no objections. Adopted.
Then finally, the new paragraph 4 is previous paragraph 3, and I guess, Madam Chairperson, it wouldn't have any change.
Thank you very much. Are any objections to adopt the paragraph 4 as it's stated in the draft decision? I see no objections, so adopted. So now we have to adopt the whole decision. Decision 36.8b.34, Garrison Border Germany, yes.
I apologize, but I just learned about this law that directly implements our decisions into national law, and I would love a sentence to be included as a points to the example of this, and then quote the law. Can we do that?
Which law you want to quote?
That I heard from the ambassador. They have a national act that directly transmits the decisions of the World Heritage Center on protection into national law. Maybe the state party could give us one sentence on that. If it's too complicated, I keep it, I think it's extraordinary, and forget my proposal. Thank you.
But it's legal application which is not possible to, on spot, to insert like this, you know, it's necessary very precisely to inscribe it. Thank you very much. So next time, Portugal, please prepare everything. Not like this, you know, on the spot. So now I propose to adopt the decision 36.8b.34, Garrison Border Town of Elvas and its fortifications, Portugal, adopted. Congratulations, Portugal. So now I give the floor to Portugal. Please, floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. Thank you very much all the delegations on this committee that voted in favor of the inclusion of these fortresses and of Elvas in the World Heritage. I think this is a decision which honors this committee. I think this is the decision also which is for us a pride. And I must say, taking into account the different items, the different sites that we have in Portugal, already protected by the World Heritage, you can trust that the Portuguese government and the Portuguese authorities will remain very attentive in the way to protect this site and to give it the great possible stress in terms of maintaining it very high on our agenda. Thank you, Madam Chairman, for your attitude, and particularly for your flexibility. I must say that we were concentrating on another item on the beginning of this meeting, so we disregarded some, I would say, formal aspects for this particular point. But we are very grateful that you could find a way to get a solution at the end. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and once more, congratulations. So now, dear colleagues, we move on the other item of our agenda. It's sacral complex on the remains of the Roman Forum in Zadar, Croatia. 36.8b.28. And I give the floor to ICOMOS.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairperson. On the Sacral Forum on the Roman remains
On the remains of the Roman Forum in Sada, the state party submitted a letter of factual errors, which was carefully reviewed, and ICOMOS acknowledged that some factual errors have occurred in the evaluation of this nomination, and those factual errors have been distributed to the honorable members of the committee. The sacral complex on the remains of the Roman Forum in Sada comprises historic structures of predominantly religious functions which developed over 1,700 years. These combine a cathedral, churches, an oratory, sacristy, bell towers, and a bishop's palace, among others. The value highlighted by the state party relates to the continuous development and use of the complex over various centuries. The sacral complex is located on the peninsula of the historic center of Sada. While the property boundaries are limited to the sacral complex on the Roman Forum, here in red, the buffer zone extends to the complete peninsula. At present, the buffer zone does not include the sea around the peninsula, but the state party seems in principle willing to expand the buffer zone. The sacral complex combines a number of religious buildings which are part of the historic urban fabric. Its centerpiece is the Roman Forum with Roman archaeological remains on which the episcopal complex is located. The Roman Forum preserved fragments of Roman flooring. The core of the episcopal complex is the cathedral dedicated to Saint Anastasia. The three-nave basilica contains paintings in fresco technique dating to the 13th and 14th century. Attached to the cathedral are a baptistry, partly reconstructed after destruction in World War II, and the bell tower. The Church of St. Donat, with its circular ground plan, is dated to the mid-9th century. The sacristy of St. Barbara Church contains early Christian mosaics dating back to the 5th century. And the old seminary, which was completed in 1748. The Orthodox Church of St. Elijah, including its bell tower, were built in Venetian Baroque in the late 18th century. Further part of the property is the Church of St. Mary and its Benedictine convent. Although the convent is mentioned in the description of the property, it is not at present located in the property boundaries. The sacral complex also includes its administrative center, the Bishop's Palace, as well as the former capital zone. The property is visited by a number of visitors, especially during the summer months, and hosts large-scale cultural events. The visitor management plan should therefore, beyond interpretation and presentation, also consider visitor flows, carrying capacities, as well as risk preparedness. In the ICOMOS graphics, you see that outstanding universal value is not seen as justified. ICOMOS considers that stronger cohesion of the elements presented may allow improved judgment regarding integrity, which is not demonstrated at this moment. ICOMOS notes that the number of renovations and partial reconstructions is high, which impacts on the material authenticity. The comparative analysis lacked a strong basis, and ICOMOS does not think it makes a convincing case for the uniqueness of the property. The criteria proposed were not seen as justified. In terms of boundaries, ICOMOS like the state party to clarify whether the convent of St. Mary is included and to extend the buffer zone towards the sea, including the coastline beyond the Peninsula Bay. The legal protection of the urban component is adequate, but needs to be elaborated for a revised buffer zone. ICOMOS considers that the property was subject to wide-ranging conservation activities over several decades, and that any future conservation approach should be minimalistic. The management of the site is restricted to the property and does not extend to aspects of tourism or urban planning. ICOMOS thinks that the scope and range of partnerships in site management needs to be expanded. In conclusion, ICOMOS considers that the nomination of the sacral complex of the Roman Forum in Sada be deferred to allow the state party to revise the selection and justification of its nomination proposal and provide a comprehensive comparative analysis based on a revised conceptual approach. ICOMOS would like to note that any revised nomination would need to be evaluated by a mission to the property. Beyond the conceptual revision, ICOMOS recommends reviewing the visitor management strategy, expanding partnerships for site management, implementing the proposed traffic exclusion zones, expanding the buffer zone, developing a conservation plan, preparing a risk preparedness strategy, and revising the current monitoring system. Thank you very much, Madam Chairperson.
Thank you, ICOMOS. There's another change. Thank you for these explanations, and I now invite state parties to express their comments on this nomination and to adopt the draft decision concerning this property. The floor now is open. I recognize Serbia. Serbia, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's a pleasure to comment on this proposal, although I must immediately say that Serbia does not share the views or recommendations of the ICOMOS committee. This is a complex of major historical and religious significance, not only for the state of Croatia, but beyond, for the entire Central Eastern European region. It is a complex which, as very correctly represented or presented in the wording of the proposal, illustrates a long and complex history of this city of Zadar, as well as the complex broader history of the region. It is a meeting place of cultures covering a vast span of time. It was suggested that it's 1700 years. It actually is more 2 millennia, more like 2 millennia. The history of the city of Zadar clearly reaches and is documented in this particular complex from Roman times to the modern era. It is focused, and properly so, on monuments of religious significance in the central part of the city, and it is presented in a manner which is exemplary, I believe, and easily understandable and accessible. A consideration of the history of the city of Zadar is of importance because it includes not only repeated reconstructions and additions, which has been suggested as one of the hallmarks of the present state of buildings, and therefore is one of the reasons for criticism. It really represents a very turbulent history, of which some require some mention. In addition to the first rather significant destruction of the city of Zadar in the early part of the 13th century by the crusading forces under the leadership of Venice, the later history of the city underwent further similar, albeit lesser events. However, the greatest destruction occurred in 1943, which resulted in severe bombing of the city of Zadar and the destruction of quite a number of buildings, both of historical significance and of the residential fabric of the city itself. The post-World War II years brought about very careful cleaning and reconstruction of the remains left by the bombardments. And luckily and very significantly resulted in significant archaeological discoveries. The main of these was the discovery of the Roman Forum, a monument of considerable significance in its own right, and one which can be considered as a platform on which the entire present city is actually seen. In reality, that was not possible before the bombardments. What the bombardments have revealed is the marble floor of the entire length of the Roman Forum, upon which the medieval structures and later structures were actually founded. The value of these monuments is of major significance. Each could be presented in its own right. We cannot do this here. This is done extremely well in the presentation of the nomination presentation, and I think are worthy of being perceived in a meritorious fashion that they eminently deserve. So without taking more time, I would simply like to state that this significant and unique case of urban architecture illustrating a span of long history in a region which does not have comparable, albeit it has related complexes, is of major significance not only on a local but regional scale and beyond. So we very much recommend the inscription of this site, and I think others will have further things to comment on this matter. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Before I give the floor to Estonia, I would like to ask you to keep 3 minutes time for your intervention. Estonia, please take the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I agree that Zadar is a wonderful place, but Estonia also agrees with the concerns expressed and issues raised by ICOMOS regarding this nomination, and especially the way it has been presented. However, at this moment, I would like to emphasize another aspect of this site. The restoration works carried out in Zadar over the last 30 years or so reflect the widespread conservation practice in southeastern Europe, especially on the Mediterranean coast, and by now this could be put into a historical perspective. These works represent a specific period and specific approach in the conservation history and could be valued as such on their own right. Having said so, we do agree with ICOMOS experts that the future conservation measures should be more minimalistic. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Switzerland, floor is yours.
Merci Madame la Présidente. Je partage l'avis des délégations qui ont parlé avant nous, qu'il s'agit d'un site certes très important, mais ce n'est pas toute la question, parce qu'il est évident qu'il y a un problème d'intégrité de la présentation de cette candidature, ce qui devient clair aussi dans la partie de la description du bien dans le dossier, tandis que certains parties sont décrits mais ne font pas partie du périmètre, il y en a d'autres qui figurent mais ne sont pas décrits. Il y a aussi dans une certaine mesure un problème d'authenticité, mais je crois que la question fondamentale qu'il faut se poser, c'est le concept de la construction de la valeur universelle exceptionnelle de cette candidature. Et là, il nous semble qu'il faudra quand même retravailler toute la présentation, parce que la seule continuité, certes impressionnante, dans l'histoire de bâtiments publics ou religieux sur un endroit, tout seul, n'est encore pas assez pour une inscription sur la liste du patrimoine mondial, parce qu'il faudra démontrer en quoi exactement cette continuité soit exceptionnelle, où on a entendu de notre collègue serbe et aussi de l'Estonie certaines autres approches ou pistes qui pourraient effectivement amener à une construction de valeurs universelles exceptionnelles, mais qui n'est à ce moment pas présente dans le dossier. Et ce que nous devons examiner, c'est ce qui est soumis comme candidature. Et donc la valeur, selon nous, nécessaire n'est pas établie et nous devions donc différer cette candidature. Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you very much. Russian Federation.
Спасибо, уважаемая госпожа председатель. Мы считаем предложенную заявку интересной и достаточно перспективной. Приветствуем то, что сделано Хорватией для сохранения и внесения в список всемирного наследия этого объекта. Однако, выслушав заключение ИКОМОС, и если я правильно услышал, речь идет о том, что в пределах объекта есть много компонентов новой застройки или реставрации, а также с учетом других вопросов делегации, хотелось бы задать вопрос стране-члену, чтобы Хорватия могла дать разъяснение и прояснить позиции об аутентичности и целостности объекта Задар. Спасибо.
Спасибо. Thank you very much. Colombia.
Gracias, señora presidenta. Hemos oído los comentarios que han hecho los países precedentes. Quisiéramos darle igualmente la palabra a Croacia, ya que nos han presentado una lista de errores procedimentales bastante amplia. Quisiéramos ver, nos pudieran dar un poco de información sobre la autenticidad y la integridad, como lo acaba de decir el delegado de Rusia, e igualmente que nos pudieran comentar sobre la conservación del sitio, ya que Estonia ha hecho un punto muy importante que se podría tomar en consideración. Gracias.
Maybe with your permission, I will give the floor to ICOMOS and to State Party, and we then, proceed with the discussion. So, ICOMOS, floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. I don't think any specific question has been addressed to ICOMOS at this point. I could, however, since this question was addressed to the State Party, try to add information on the aspect of authenticity and integrity of the site. In terms of authenticity, it is certain that the city has been destroyed to a far larger degree than the site itself, but several components of the site have in partial reconstructions that have become part of what is nominated as a property. In terms of integrity, I think here the approach is more that we don't have a clear concept yet that could constitute, I think my microphone is just given up, apologies, that could constitute outstanding universal value, and therefore it is difficult to judge how this value that as a concept is not clearly evident in the given nomination could be considered complete. Thank you, Madam Chairperson.
Thank you very much. State Party, Croatia, you have the floor.
Mrs. Chairperson, honorable members of committee, distinguished audience, on behalf of small Croatian delegation, I would like to thank you for the opportunity to address the floor for the first time. We greatly appreciate all received support as well as the questions, and I will try to answer, summarizing them as brief as possible. First, considering the factual errors and their possible influence on justification of OUV, yes, of course, they considerably influenced justification. Therefore, we really appreciated that ICOMOS reconsidered and accepted our reclamations of several factual errors, especially those regarding the previous constatation that some of the buildings within the nominated complex are facsimile reconstructions. In fact, it was easy to see that early Christian baptistry, partially demolished during the Second World War, was necessarily rebuilt, or better to say, recomposed, mostly with its original stone material and sculpted elements, and based on absolutely perfect graphic documentation to serve again to its original function within the complex of the cathedral as from 5th century. The Romanesque church of St. Mary, reshaped in the Renaissance and Baroque time, was also damaged in the Second World War, but remained with unspoiled original structure, on the contrary to a report. It was just necessary to restore its roof and ceiling, but without reconstruction of the original stucco. Anyway, these remarks doesn't undermine our constatation that excellence of the Zadar assemblage lies precisely in its stratification, complexity, in the uniqueness of some of its buildings, but above all in its involvement in everyday life, in which it's still mostly being put to its original use. Dealing with authenticity and integrity of nominated property. As we explained in nomination dossier, I believe, Zadar has retained the most faithful image of Roman urban design on eastern shore of Adriatic. The characteristically orthogonal grid with its longitudinal and transversal streets that enclose regular rectangular blocks remained for 2,000 years the setting for a rich medieval and modern urban stratification. But the most important thing is that the Roman grid plan has been interpreted by every new era in its own way, with a new hierarchy of its internal urban topography. And the very heart of the city has remained to this day the Roman Forum, in the dozens of transformations of the different stylistic forms. As a rule, these buildings have pronounced international stylistic forms: Byzantine, Carolingian, Hungarian, French, Lombardian, Venetian, Austrian, even Victorian, and cosmopolitan language of which has obtained a powerful echo and confirmation in the very specific dialect, even jargon, of architecture and sculpture in Dalmatia. Regarding the methods of reconstruction in the preservation of the nominated property, which is alleged to be dominant and effective of UV, I could briefly say, because of its position on the longitudinal and transverse Adriatic routes and at the site where the roads open to its Central Europe, Zadar for centuries been exposed to various political interests, undergoing a series of assaults and conquests. Up to 1409, when it became a seat of Venetian government, it had acknowledged some 20 political sovereignties. In fact, it is rather uncommon that it should have managed to convey its palpable monumental memories through all these misfortunes. On the contrary to recommendations, the Zadar architectural heritage should be seen as a unique open-air reader of various forms of high stylistic ambitions, St. Donatus of 9th century particularly. It is also the reader of the whole range of renovation, conservation, restoration, and reconstruction models. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So, dear colleagues, you heard the very good explanation from the State Party and from ICOMOS, and I would like, in your discussion, to explain what is your opinion concerning the decision, please. Now I give the floor Mali.
Merci Madame la Présidente. Je vous remercie cette fois-ci. La plaque du Mali a été bel et bien vue. Je voudrais, suite aux différentes explications données par l'ICOMOS et l'État parti, je ne voudrais pas revenir sur le témoignage qui a été fait par notre doyen de la Serbie. Vous avez fait un très beau témoignage sur l'histoire de ce site. Je ne reviendrai pas là-dessus, mais je reviendrai sur deux éléments techniques extrêmement importants à savoir les différents efforts faits par l'État partie dans l'élaboration d'un ensemble de plusieurs projets de restauration. Autre élément également technique important, c'est, si vous voulez, l'amélioration de la zone tampon. Là aussi, nous l'avons écouté. Donc, au vu de ces différents éléments, le Mali est entièrement favorable à l'inscription du site. Je vous remercie.
Thank you very much. France, the floor is yours.
Merci Madame la Présidente. Je crois qu'il y a sur toute la planète des villes qui incontestablement sont des millefeuilles d'histoire. Et Zadar appartient à cette catégorie de villes qui ont été bénies par l'histoire. C'est une ville symbole dans la continuité et dans l'épure de toutes nos métamorphoses européennes. Mais pourtant, nous pensons qu'il y a un problème de définition du concept et nous voudrions suivre les recommandations de l'ICOMOS et nous sommes prêts, le cas échéant aussi, à travailler avec l'État partie à la redéfinition du concept. Je vous remercie.
Thank you very much. India.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This has actually been one of the most interesting nominations that we've come across in this afternoon. The issues that have been brought out, the multi-layered civilizational context, the fact that over, well, almost 2,000 years, the city has been the focus of trade, commerce, and unfortunately war. To me, the defining imagery of the 20th century has really been revolution or war, and sometimes both. And this city has actually been vulnerable, has suffered, been inflicted with at least one of them. Now, Madam Chair, I'll be very brief that I actually have a problem with the definitional, with the typology that has been used by ICOMOS. And I think that this city itself is perhaps, and the architecture that we're seeing, firstly is unique. It's deserving of recognition of its value. It's deserving of inscription. It's something that we should support. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Ethiopia, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to be very brief, much has been said by my colleagues. So it's just to support the inscription. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Senegal, the floor is yours.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Après avoir écouté le représentant de la Croatie et répondant sur les erreurs factuelles, notamment en ce qui concerne les travaux de restructuration, pour les conformer à la structure originelle, je pense que vu également que ce site présente une valeur exceptionnelle, je pense qu'il est tout à fait possible de l'inscrire.
Thank you very much. So I would give the floor to the rapporteur. We have amendment to Iraq, please.
شكرا سيادة الرئيس. استنادا إلى إيضاحات الدولة الطرف ومداخلة الأعضاء نؤيد إدراج الموقع. شكرا.
Thank you very much.
UAE.
United Arab Emirates.
شكرا سيد الرئيس. نحن وبما لدينا من المعلومات من الدولة الطرف اتضح بأن هناك سوء تواصل منذ الفترة التي تقدموا فيها بالملف مع الهيئات الاستشارية أدت إلى الخروج بالاستنتاجات التي وصلت إليها إيكومس والتي نقدر جهودها وندرك أنها من منطلق الحرص ولكن بعد السماع لتوضيحات الدولة الطرف ومداخلات وشروحات الدول التي سبقتنا في الحديث نجد أنفسنا أمام موقع يتفق الجميع على أهميته الثقافية والتاريخية والدينية والتواصل بين الحضارات. لذلك ونجد أنفسنا أيضا من ناحية نتفهم مشاغل الإيكوميرس على النواقص لكن نرى أن هذا الأمر في استطاعة الدولة الطرف أن تلتزم أو أن تفي بهذه المشاغل ونرى نوافق على الإدراج.
Serbia.
Excusez-moi, Madame la Présidente, je voudrais que vous me redonniez la parole avant le rapporteur, juste pour apporter quelques éclaircissements sur notre projet de décision, parce que il y avait beaucoup de choses qui ont été raillées, et en fait, on voulait dire à l'État partie ce qu'il faut faire. Bon, merci.
Thank you very much, Algeria. Floor is yours.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Nous avons bien écouté l'État partie et également la déclaration de la Serbie sur la valeur de ce patrimoine, ce qui nous a convaincus, et nous sommes avec la majorité qui demanderait l'inscription de ce site en donnant la possibilité d'apporter les éléments nécessaires à confirmer donc, ce qui a été demandé par l'ICOMOS. Merci.
Thank you very much. Mexico, floor is yours. Malaysia. Oh, Malaysia, excuse me. Malaysia, floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I will be brief. Having listened carefully the explanation by State Party, we would also like to join hands with other committee members in supporting for inscription of this nomination. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Germany, floor is yours.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to have guidance on which basis, which is the statement of outstanding universal value we are going to decide.
We have amendment with the outstanding universal value prepared.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Colombia, floor is yours. What is happening with the microphones? Please check. Colombia, please, floor is yours.
La propuesta original de ICOMOS era de no inscripción. De una manera de procedimiento me parece imposible ir directamente a inscripción. Creo que le estamos haciendo un desfavor al Estado parte. No tenemos ahorita definición ni valor excepcional, no tenemos los criterios, no tenemos el plan de manejo. Es un sitio extraordinario que estoy segura que en un año podrá estar en refer o inclusive inscripción, pero realmente creemos con mis expertos que este sitio necesita un año más de preparación. Gracias.
Thank you very much. Qatar, floor is yours.
شكرا سيدتي الرئيسة. بعد أن استمعنا للدولة العضو وتفسيراتها وإيضاحاتها، نعتقد بأنه من المفيد تسجيل هذا الموقع على أن يتم مستقبلا استكمال النواقص التي وردت في تقرير الأيكوموس. شكرا.
Thank you very much. So may I consider that our debate is over, and I will give the floor to the rapporteur. Please, Madam, we have amendment.
Yes, Madam Chairperson, I happily do mention all the amendments, but I think that the delegation of Serbia requested the floor before me. Is that correct?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So by mistake, the old paragraph 4 was deleted, which was not the intention of Serbia. So I would like to just delete the number D, 4D, and to leave everything else, and at the end, actually at the beginning, to say recommends that the state party give attention to the following.
Dear colleagues, I would
Bien,
like...
on invite, c'est bon aussi.
Dear colleagues, I would start from the main question, you know. What we will do, we inscribe or we defer or we refer, because the opinion of the committee is divided. Some countries have the opinion that it has to be deferral, like it was proposed by ECOMOS. The majority of the countries consider that it would be possible to inscribe and give, then to improve what was recommended by ICOMOS. So what we will do, the majority of the countries supports the inscription. So please, Switzerland.
Merci Madame la Présidente. Comme vous, j'ai constaté que la majorité des pays s'est prononcée pour l'inscription. Ce qui me chagrine, c'est la chose suivante. C'est que, ce faisant, on détourne en quelque sorte les recommandations qu'ICOMOS fait pour que un bien, de quelque nature qu'il soit d'ailleurs, puisse être inscrit. Puisque, à la demande de la Serbie, à juste titre d'ailleurs, elle dit que nous devons réintroduire l'ancien paragraphe 4 avec un certain nombre d'adaptations. Ce qui a pour effet d'empêcher le comité de prendre des décisions sur une base réelle, puisque les demandes d'adaptation, de révision, d'élargissement du partenariat, de mise en œuvre de plans d'interdiction, etc., sont remis, je dirais, au calende grec, ou a posteriori en tout cas, et que nous donnons en quelque sorte à l'État partie un blanc-seing. Et dans l'économie de la Convention, Madame la Présidente, cette manière de procéder qui s'est élargie de plus en plus me gêne. Et voilà pourquoi nous étions et nous sommes pour le différement, pour donner à l'État partie, dans lequel nous avons toute confiance, bien entendu, de se conformer aux demandes de l'ICOMOS. Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you very much. France, floor is yours.
Merci Madame la Présidente. Très rapidement, je voulais dire que la France est entièrement d'accord avec ce que vient de dire la Suisse. Je vous remercie.
Serbia, floor is yours.
La Serbie va bien sûr écouter aussi le comité, mais on voulait vraiment dire que, et puis la volonté de la majorité. On voulait vraiment dire qu'il s'agit ici de beaucoup de lettres envoyées à l'ICOMOS où il y avait vraiment des fautes de fond. En ce qui concerne la Croatie, c'était aussi le cas. Donc, nous n'avons pas des lettres que les États parties ont envoyées. C'était le cas avec l'Inde, c'était le cas avec bien d'autres monuments qu'on a inscrits ou qu'on a renvoyés, on a envoyé pour le renvoi, etc. Donc, je voudrais vraiment, on n'a pas parlé de ça parce que ce n'est pas notre but ici de parler des fautes qui ont été, en examinant une nomination, qui ont été faites. Je suis désolée de constater que dans un site si exceptionnel, il y avait dans l'évaluation de l'ICOMOS autant de fautes qui ont été, certaines ont été admises, certaines n'ont jamais été admises. Donc, c'est juste ça ce que je voulais dire. Donc, c'est à comité de décider. Nous avons proposé et puis surtout donner la valeur méritée à ce bien. Excusez-moi, si vous me permettez, je vais donner la parole à notre expert.
No, thank you very much. No. Dear colleagues, but we have the other possibility, referral, if the state party... Mali, please take the floor.
Excusez-moi, Madame la Présidente, le renvoi n'a pas été proposé. Je vous remercie.
South Africa, please take the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a difficult one for South African delegation. Our concern, Chair, is the letter around factual errors. I know ICOMOS responded earlier. Can we hear, Chair, for the last time, what is their specific response to the letter from the state party around factual errors? Because we are worried, Chair, we will be sitting here like writing a dossier. We don't want to do that. Can we hear for the last time what are their specific responses to the letter by the state party? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. ICOMOS, floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairperson. We accepted a number of factual errors that were indicated in the letter by the state party. We accepted that we misused the name Episcopal Complex in 2 cases where it should have been called Sacral Complex on the Roman Forum. We also accepted that we predated the St. Donat's Church to be from the mid-8th century, while it was in fact at the beginning of the 9th century. We further agreed that while we had once stated that the Church of St. Mary was largely a facsimile reconstruction carried out in the 1970s, it actually was just a partial reconstruction in the 1970s, and that reconstruction concerned the roof and the vaulting of the church. We further accepted that the Capitulary Hall, which we had dated imprecisely, was 11 years younger than we had stated in the report. And last but not least, we accepted that the partial reconstruction in St. Anastasia Cathedral we had referred to just concerned the surfaces of the outer wall. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Now I give the floor to Algeria. The floor is yours.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Nous venons d'écouter l'ICOMOS, mais au-delà des erreurs factuelles, nous sommes rendus compte que la majorité ici n'a pas reconnu la valeur exceptionnelle de ce site. La question se pose pour le point 4, où des recommandations sont faites. Rien ne s'oppose à ce qu'on soumette ces recommandations à délai et que l'État partie se plie à ces délais. Si ces délais ne sont pas remplis, on verra bien. Mais on peut soumettre à délai les recommandations et faire une mission de suivi qui pourrait constater les efforts réalisés par l'État durant le délai imparti avant la prochaine réunion du comité. Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you very much. Switzerland.
J'aimerais simplement dire à l'égard de la collègue de l'Algérie que c'est exactement l'objet d'un différement. Et c'est la raison pour laquelle nous sommes pour le différement. Merci, Madame.
Thank you very much. Germany.
Thank you, Madam Chair. When I follow this discussion, I have the feeling that the list of factual errors may have influenced the decision that was recommended. And I think in this case, and when there's already a large membership and we have refrained from participating largely, is of the opinion that we can now move ahead, then we should give the party the reason of the doubt or put it to the state party whether they want to wait for one more year. Otherwise, I think we should move ahead. Thank you.
Estonia.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to have a small comment about the letters of factual errors. Estonia would like to thank the State Party of Croatia who also received this letter. Definitely there were certain factual errors made by ICOMOS, and there was also some advocacy by the State Party. But the main thing what we discovered here was that several of these claims were not the factual errors, but you can, from the same facts, make different deductions. It is the question of interpretation. It's not the factual errors. Thank you.
Thank you very much. France, the floor is yours.
Merci Madame le Président. Deux choses. Je pense que les erreurs factuelles, qui sont bien sûr regrettables, brouillent un peu notre débat. Deuxièmement, je rebondis sur ce que vient de dire l'Algérie. Est-ce que ce n'est pas l'Algérie nous propose une inscription conditionnelle? Je voudrais savoir si cela est possible. Je vous remercie.
South Africa, floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Apologies to take the floor again. If it was a dialogue, I would have asked the floor after ICOMOS. Listening to the advisory board, Madam Chair, and the earlier response of the State Party is equals to something. We are convinced that perhaps it's no longer a deferral. It's something that will need to lead us somewhere. But, Madam Chair, it cannot still be a deferral. We'll leave it there for now. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. United Arab Emirates.
شكرا السيد الرئيس. نحن نقدر مشاغل بعض الدول الأطراف تجاه هذا الملف، وعندما وافقنا على الإدراج نحن نؤيد الإدراج المشروط، وقد عبرنا عن صعوبة هذه القناعة. لكن أيضا وبعد ما سمعناه من إيكومس أرى أن نعطي الدولة الطرف فرصة أخرى أو أخيرة للإدلاء باقتناعهم بما سمعوه من إيكومس أو أي إضافات يودون الرد عليها. شكرا.
Dear colleagues, before we proceed further, I would like to ask legal advisor, is it possible the conditional inscription under some condition? Legal advisor, please answer this question.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I believe that you cannot have a conditional inscription. I believe you can inscribe with a number of recommendations, but I don't think you can inscribe conditionally. I would be interested in seeing whether the Secretariat of the committee agrees with me or not. Thank you.
Dear colleagues, I will give the floor to Mr. Rao.
Just to confirm, Madam Chair, that we do agree with what the legal advisor has said. There is no conditional inscription, purely for the reason that if the conditions are not met, there is no provision to then take the site off the list. It is inscription with recommendations, as many sites are inscribed under that provision, but there is no conditional inscription. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. United Arab Emirates, floor is yours.
نحن نأسف لسوء التعبير. ما قصدناه فعلا هو الإدراج والالتزام بالتوصيات التي أشارت أو سيشار إليها في هذا القرار. لكني أيضا طلبت إمكانية إعطاء الدولة الطرف فرصة أخيرة للتعليق على ما أفادت به إيكوموس. إذا كان رأيت ذلك ممكنا سيد الرئيس.
Algeria.
Merci Madame la Présidente. Il ne s'agit pas là d'une inscription conditionnelle, au sens où la condition est nécessaire pour continuer. Il s'agit là d'assortir l'exigence demandée par l'article 4, qui ne remet pas en question, qui n'est pas une révision substantielle de la proposition d'inscription qui concerne le différé. Il s'agit de mesures qui accompagnent la décision d'inscription. Nous pouvons les revoir. Elles ne sont pas le fondement qui a justifié la décision d'inscrire le bien sur la liste du patrimoine mondial par le comité. Donc, je crois que ce débat que nous venons d'avoir maintenant est un débat que nous aurons dans le cadre de la révision des orientations. Nous avons des règlements, et c'est normal, différés, renvois, inscrits, mais nous n'avons pas de solution intermédiaire qui pourrait résoudre les problèmes, ce type de problème où la valeur exceptionnelle est reconnue, où il faudra pour le pays attendre 2 ans, 3 ans pour revoir et pour redemander cette inscription. Il faut trouver des solutions intermédiaires. Nous avons ce matin et depuis hier discuté sur cette incompréhension entre le partage d'informations entre l'État partie et l'ICOMOS. L'ICOMOS qui est surchargé, qui pose un problème de communication, qui se pose un problème de communication, mais nous n'avons pas de solution dans les orientations pour répondre à ces problèmes. Donc toutes ces questions que nous avons posées et discutées ne sont ni de la mauvaise volonté de la part des États parties, j'en suis certaine, ni de la mauvaise foi, mais ce sont des problèmes réels d'application des orientations telles qu'elles sont données et qui ne proposent pas de procédures intermédiaires souples qui permettent aux États parties de régler des situations qui peuvent être réglées en 1 mois, 2 mois, 3 mois, mais pas en 12 mois en attendant la réunion du comité. Merci Madame la Présidente.
Thank you very much. I would like ICOMOS take the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. In case there was a misunderstanding, I'm not quite sure with regard to the comment from Algeria, ICOMOS had not seen outstanding universal value. So if she referred to the committee members constituting that there is outstanding universal value, this is of course possible, but ICOMOS did not identify that the site had outstanding universal value in its current nomination. Thank you, Madam Chairperson.
Thank you very much. So I would like to ask legal advisor to say us, what does it mean, intermediate decision? Solution.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Madam Chairman, if you refer to the statement by Algeria about an intermediary process, I believe that the operational guidelines of the Convention already provide for an intermediary procedure. You have first a decision for inscription, and then you have a deferral, which is what is being recommended in this case, in which there is required a more in-depth assessment or study and a recommendation to resubmit. But the committee does have the possibility to refer back to the state party for additional information and have the state party submit the new dossier by the next meeting of the committee. At the moment, under the operational guidelines, these are the three possibilities that are available to the committee, and the referral would be a quote-unquote intermediary solution. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you very much. Colombia, please take the floor.
Gracias, señora presidenta. En aras de no extender este debate más de lo que ya llevamos, puesto que es una obvia división entre los de no inscripción y los de defer, podríamos sugerir un referral, pero un referral con una misión, puesto que le estaremos haciendo un mal servicio al país, al Estado parte, hacerle un referral donde no tenga una misión, viendo que hay falta, la información que falta es enorme. No que el sitio no la vaya a tener, es que no ha sido presentada y por lo tanto no ha podido ser estudiada y hay errores de procedimientos factuales y hay cosas que toca hacer, hay mucho trabajo por hacer. Lo podríamos referir, le estaríamos dando al Estado parte un año más, pero lo estaríamos haciendo con una misión, pero hasta donde entiendo, esto es casi que una fórmula nueva, tener un referral con misión, porque como ha presentado ICOMOS, no tienen el tiempo para hacerlo. Pero en este caso especial, para poder seguir el trabajo, podría ser una solución. Gracias.
Thank you very much. India, floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In the present circumstances, the present impasse, I would support Colombia, but with an added stipulation relating to time, that is time of commencement and, if possible, time of completion and submission of report. And secondly, a role for ICOMOS or the World Heritage Center in providing the assistive element, that is assisting the state party in coming to a nomination that would, in their judgment, probably be satisfactory in its entirety to all of the committee next year. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Switzerland, floor is yours.
Moi aussi, Madame la Présidente, je soutiens cette proposition. Je rappelle simplement que des missions comme elles sont prévues n'ont lieu en général que dans le cadre du différement. Donc, si on veut faire, et je le soutiens, une mission, effectivement, il faudra faire une mission consultative si on fait un renvoi. Une mission consultative. Merci beaucoup, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you very much. Russia, floor is yours.
Спасибо, уважаемая госпожа председатель. В складывающей ситуации разных мнений нам кажется, что стоит поддержать предложение Колумбии, Индии и Швейцарии вернуть на доработку с определенными рекомендациями. Спасибо.
France, floor is yours.
Merci Madame la Présidente. Nous soutenons les propositions de la Colombie et de l'Inde. Je vous remercie.
Germany.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Germany fully supports what just is being said by the Swiss delegation, by Colombia and by India.
Thank you very much. I would like to ask the other countries who raised the nameplates, are you supporting referral? Yes, Serbia, please, take the floor.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Bref, nous on est prêts, malgré un grand regret, de soutenir aussi la proposition de la Colombie, de l'Inde, avec une explication et une aide très utile de la part de la Suisse. Mais je me permets de dire, si bien sûr l'État parti est d'accord, j'espère que oui. Et de l'autre côté, je m'excuse pour mon ignorance, mais j'étais quand même un peu frappé et confus par la réponse d'ICOMOS qui vient de nous dire qu'ils ont proposé à différer, même en n'ayant pas reconnu valeur universelle exceptionnelle. C'est vraiment pas une réponse que j'accepte.
Thank you very much. United Arab Emirates.
شكرا السيدة الرئيسة. نحن إذا حالة الخلاف في الآراء ومراجعات بعض الدول الأطراف لهذا الموقف بغية الوصول إلى عملية توافق، نحن لن نخرج عن هذا التوافق، سنكون ضمنه، ولكني حسب ما أحس سيساعدنا جميعا في هذا الأمر. ربما تكون الدولة الطرف قد أدركت الإشكالية وأنها توافق على حل معين، رغم أنها لسنا معنيين بأن توافق أو لا، ولكن هي أعطيت المجال للحديث ودافعت عن هذا الترشيح. إذا رأيتم من المفيد إعطائها فرصة للحديث، ربما يساهم هذا في اتخاذ قرار مشترك.
Thank you very much, but I can't give the floor to state parties against the rule. In such state party can't defend their nomination. It's only can answer the questions and clarify some points. Excuse me, I would with pleasure give floor to the state party. So I see that the majority now are agree for referral, but to elaborate the draft decision, it's necessary to set up, in my opinion, small. They've done it. You gave. Okay, so our reporter is very effective. So now I give the floor to our reporter.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. I will try to help so we can follow with the next items. I think that once this decision has been taken, well, first on paragraph 1, we have no amendments. Then on paragraph 2, we just said refers the examination of the nomination of the, refers back to the state party, the examination of the nomination of the sacred complex on the remains of the Roman Forum in Zadar, Croatia. Okay, now it's in the screen. Then that paragraph finished there. We will need to delete the following paragraph 3 because we are not adopting the statement of outstanding universal value. And then we go to next paragraph, which will be we delete all that. We will go the new paragraph 3, which will say recommends that the state party give attention to the following, and then we start with A, B, C, D, E, and F. Then we will need, I guess, to delete the paragraph proposed by Estonia, because I understand that this amendment was proposed bearing in mind the inscription. And based on what the committee also requested, we will need to add a new paragraph which should read more or less as follows. Also recommends that state party recommends the state party to invite an advisory mission by ICOMOS as soon as possible. As long as some of the delegations wanted to add something else, Madam Chair.
India, floor is yours.
Thank you. I think, Madam Chair, we should use the phrase provided by the distinguished ambassador of Switzerland, which is a consultative mission, because that's a precise term. I think we need to bring in a time frame And I leave it to the World Heritage Center to confirm that this is feasible and possible. And I'd like to go back to the earlier part, if you don't mind, Madam Chair, because there is an asymmetry here that ICOMOS did not see any outstanding universal value, whereas most of the committee did. Now, the paragraphs follow from that, and therefore they may not be necessary.
Could go to the first part of the decision, please?
It seems that it's necessary to maintain these two A and B, which have been deleted. ICOMOS, please take the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. Since ICOMOS had difficulties to see outstanding universal value, it may indeed facilitate our evaluation in the forthcoming year if we could get an additional explanation by the state party as to what the outstanding universal value will be and a detailed comparative analysis in that regard. So we would appreciate if this information would stay in the decision. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I would propose that we adopt paragraph by paragraph like usual procedure. So paragraph 1, are any, are there any objections? I see none. So paragraph 2 refers the examination of the nomination of the sacral complex of the remains of the Roman Forum in Zadar, Croatia, back to the state party in order to allow it to. And then points A and B, which states like it was in original variant. Are any objections? No, I see none. Adopted. So now we move on to the new paragraph 3, which recommends that the state party give attention to the following. And it is the same recommendation which we see in the original version of the draft decision. So are any objections? I see none. So adopted. And do we have another?
Paragraph 5.
Paragraph 5 also recommends the state party to invite a consultative mission by ICOMOS as soon as possible. Are any objections? India, please.
Yeah, Madam Chair, my intention is not only that they should invite as soon as possible, but that they should go as soon as possible. Is there some way of encouraging them to do that? Is there some way of assigning a proactive role to the World Heritage Center, Madam? Thank you.
ICOMOS, is it possible to come there as soon as possible?
Madam Chairperson, we would need to see the invitation by the state party first in order to then react to the terms of reference of the invitation, which would determine how we could select the best possible expert to conduct the mission and then to clarify if this expert is available at short notice. Thank you.
So I suppose that if we keep like this.
Madam, I agree with you. I think the intent is very clear. I think ICOMOS has heard it. I think ICOMOS has heard the committee. I think ICOMOS has heard the understanding of the committee that they have not arrived at an understanding. So I leave it at that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. So we keep the paragraph 5 as it was amended. So are any objections? I see none, so adopted. Now we have to move and to the beginning and to adopt the whole decision. So the decision 36.8b.28 Sacral Complex on the remains of the Roman Forum in Zadar, Croatia is adopted as amended. Adopted. Thank you very much.
The next one is.
Dear colleagues, next site is for inscription is France, so I suppose that we can proceed quite quickly. So next item is 36.8b.29 Nord-Pas-de-Calais Mining Basin, France. So ICOMOS, floor is yours, and I would like to ask you to be a little bit more brief. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairperson. We try to be as brief as possible, but given that this is a serial property of 109 components, it may not quite be possible in 5 minutes. Nord-Pas-de-Calais Mining Basin. The property Nord-Pas-de-Calais Mining Basin comprises a 120 kilometer long stretch of the northwest European coal seam. It represents a mining and industrial landscape created over 3 centuries of coal extraction from the 18th to the 20th century. The mining basin is a serial nomination of 109 components and is also presented as a cultural landscape. It is located in the Nord-Pas-de-Calais region. The 109 components are grouped in 13 regional sectors corresponding to the territories linked to former mining companies. The overall property covers 3,943 hectares and is surrounded by a buffer zone of almost 19,000 hectares. The site components consists of pits, headgears, slag heaps, railway stations, coal transport infrastructure, subsided mine ponds, workers' estates, schools, religious buildings, health facilities, and other architectural and monumental structures, which were selected of a far larger number of sites following a sophisticated inventory system and analysis. The 13 sectors are partly connected, and each contains a varying number of site components ranging from 4 to 87. Given that the property consists of 109 site components, I will try to illustrate the different types of objects and landscape included through examples in the 13 sections. Section 1, Anzon Mining Company, contains the Ironberg pit, which, like other pits in the property, comprises the surface facilities, associated shafts, and underground infrastructure. The wider landscape approach highlights the Denessi landscape, here seen from the Renan slag heap with workers' estates, such as l'Église Village in La Sentinelle or the schools in Arenborg estate. The Anzon Mining Company section also includes major transport infrastructures, including railway stations, a canalized section of the Escaut River, and the Deul Canal. The second section relates to the Aniche Mining Company, which contains the Delois pit in Levard, today the historic mining center, and the Argal mining complex in Riolet and Pécancourt. It further encompasses the workers' estate Sainte-Marie, Le May, and Pécancourt, including their modern estate components and religious buildings. Escapel Mining Company constitutes Section 3 with the mining landscape of Roust-Varendon and the urban center between Deul and Scar. The pit number 2 in Section 4 of the Austricourt Mining Company illustrates a unique collection of technical mining equipment from the period of mining nationalization. Section number 5 in Dourges Mining Company exemplifies the landscape of the mining complex Pit 99 bis in Moigny, which includes impressive architectural structures like this hall for machines. Section 6, former territory of the Corrières Mining Company, shows examples of a slag heap, hillocks of spoil from the coal mine, and so-called cavaliers, coal transport links. It also contains the worker estates of Estevel at the bottom of slag heap 98 and the Bellevue estate in Arn. Likewise, Section 7 of mining company Lens has preserved Cavalier and the characteristic panorama of the twin slag heap of Pit 1119. Pit 1119 itself retained its technical infrastructure with headgear, as well as the grand offices of the mining company and the workers' trade union premises in Lens. Section 8 of Liévin Coaling Mining Company contains the headgear number 1 bis and the mining village of Pensionval in Avion. Like previous sections, it also illustrates the wider social context of the mining landscape through inclusion of the garden city of Bouvier and the school of Estate 16. The Béton Mining Company provides reference for Section 9, which represents the detached housing estate number 5 and garden sitting in Grenay. Vicogne-Drucourt Mining Company is reflected in Section 10 through pit number 1 and the garden cities of Jeanne d'Arc and Neulémont. Section 11 represents the territory of Bruay Mining Company and contains the slag heaps in Ruiz and Ménil-Ruiz, the musicians' housing estate, the flour mining village, and the electricians' mining village in Bruay-Buissier. Section 12 of Mar Mining Company includes several landscape panoramas from and to slag heap number 14. And last but not least, Section 13, which relates to Ligny-Auchy Mining Company, extends to the mining landscape with further slag heaps and the cultivated hillside of Artois. ICOMOS considers that the conditions of authenticity and integrity were demonstrated, although integrity relates mostly to the landscape features and not to an equal extent to the industrial components. ICOMOS considers that the comparative analysis has adequately justified the selection of property components and considers that criteria 2, 4, and 6 have been justified. The selection of boundaries is appropriate and the legal protection is, although highly complex, adequate. ICOMOS recommends to prepare a simplified description of the nature of legal protection and approval procedures to enable residents and other stakeholders to understand the relevant rules and processes. ICOMOS considers that the property's state of conservation is overall satisfactory and that it would be desirable to develop an overarching conservation program for the medium term, including a summary of measures envisaged and their schedule for implementation. Equally, the management system is overall adequate. However, specific financial and human resources dedicated to the property should be clarified and confirmed. In summary, ICOMOS recommends to inscribe the Nord-Pas-de-Calais mining basin on the World Heritage List as a cultural landscape on the basis of criteria 2, 4, and 6. ICOMOS further recommends to the State Party to give consideration to explaining the legal protection system to all stakeholders concerned, developing a conservation program, publishing the overarching management policy, surveying and, if necessary, augmenting the existing human resources and training opportunities, as well as integrating the new indicators provided into the monitoring system. Thank you very much, Madam Chairperson.
Thank you very much. So it's the site proposed for inscription. Are any other opinions? I see none. So I propose that we make the decision, adoption for the decision 36.8b.29, Nord-Pas-de-Calais Mining Basin, France. Are any objections? I see no objections. Adopted. Congratulations. No, we want to congratulate. No, because they have to stop. We are exactly in time.
My God. For what? So much excitement.
No, but I can tell you, they worked a lot, you know, it's very difficult, all these things. Dear colleagues, we have 2 minutes to stop this session. That's why, please, a little bit later on, you congratulate personally the State Party. And now I give the floor to my dear colleague, Excellency Ambassador of France, please.
Большое спасибо, госпожа президент.
Thank you very much.
Après mes études de droit, je suis parti travailler comme ouvrier pendant plusieurs années dans un pays d'usines et de mines en Lorraine. Il n'y a jamais de hasard. Aujourd'hui, ouvrier de la diplomatie française, il me revient l'honneur d'accompagner le dossier du bassin minier du Nord-Pas-de-Calais. Ce paysage d'histoire et de mémoire symbolise à nos yeux à la fois la noblesse du travail, y compris le plus pénible et le plus dangereux. Je pense naturellement au travail du mineur. Et il symbolise aussi le fait que notre pays s'est aussi construit dans le grand mélangeur de ses marches. Je remercie tous ceux qui nous ont fait l'amitié d'accueillir ce projet et je félicite tous ceux qui l'ont fait vivre et je donne tout de suite la parole à Jean-François Caron. Je vous remercie.
Merci, Monsieur l'Ambassadeur. L'émotion est grande. J'espère aller au bout de mon tout petit texte en 1 minute. Tout simplement, merci. Merci à vous tous pour votre vote. Merci à tous ceux qui ont contribué pendant 10 ans à cette belle aventure. Merci pour tous les mineurs et leurs familles. Cette inscription, ce n'est pas un détail de notre histoire, c'est notre histoire. Chez nous, les paysages ne sont pas faits de granit rose, de mer limpide ou de sommets aux neiges éternelles. Chez nous, l'homme a creusé, a extrait, a construit des montagnes. Et l'idée même que l'histoire des mineurs vaut celle des rois change tout. C'est une histoire humaine construite sur des valeurs telles que le courage, la simplicité, la solidarité. Une histoire qui a déclenché de vastes mouvements de migration et les 29 nationalités qui sont venues travailler chez nous ont contribué à la richesse culturelle de notre territoire. Une activité, enfin, qui a vu la naissance d'une conscience ouvrière très forte, telle que la mine l'a fait émerger dans tous les pays miniers du monde, que je salue aujourd'hui. Cette inscription élève l'ensemble des corporations minières en leur donnant fierté, dignité et confiance. Nous formons le vœu que cette reconnaissance renforce la solidarité et la coopération entre les bassins miniers du monde. Encore merci.
Thank you very much. Félicitations à toi. Dear colleagues, and before I close this session, I will tell that today we have site event in fortification of St. Pavel and Peter. Yes, so, and I give the floor to my colleague. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Please listen carefully because otherwise we will not get out of the building. Dear colleagues, please be aware of the slight modification only for today of the exits of this palace. For technical reasons, the main entry exit is closed and all of us are invited to take the directions through the wing of the, if I can read it, Ekaterinski Hall to the right. when you go out from this room, and the buses are waiting there to take you to the reception event at the Peter and Paul Fortress. Thank you very much.